Chapter 996. There were dozens of Saint Kings and Saints in the Eastern Expedition Army. It was an unprecedented and luxurious lineup. When the news spread, the world was in an uproar. The Crusade. The 6 great monasteries. Together with the Brahmin, they're so powerful that they might be able to crush Tianqing school. Kong Teichu's strength is probably not enough. Otherwise, why didn't he go to the battlefield? Many people thought that Jiang Tian and Tianqing school would lose. In the Middle Ages, the crusade had gone to the east 9 times and swept across the entire Eurasian continent. The 6 great monasteries had saints in each monastery. They were as powerful as mortal deities and even earth-level deities. The Brahmin's army was also powerful. With the 3 great factions added together, they were sufficient to challenge the great powers of the present age. They were completely capable of suppressing the young Tianqing sect. Speed was the most important thing in war. The 3 armies quickly entered the Lansang River area of Wuxia and encountered the Tianqing school and the Huaxiaolong formation. Let's go to the Lansang River battlefield and show our attitude. Together with the Holy See, Brahmin and the European reclusive royalty, we'll force Kong Teichu to kneel and admit defeat. There were also many martial artists and spellcasters who thought that Jiang Tian should surrender for the sake of mankind. Everyone should also support the Holy See and Brahmin. For a moment, the 3 top sects in the world were ready to fight. An earth-shattering war broke out, and the smell of gunpowder filled the air. All the overlords and forces, as well as the superpowers, were paying close attention and their hearts were in their throats. Many overlords were dumbfounded. They couldn't believe it, as if they had seen a ghost. The Darknet forum was already in an uproar. I never thought that there were so many hidden overlords in this world. I was really a frog at the bottom of a well before. The demon hunter Pulsatilla exclaimed. As Van Helsing's disciple, Pulsatilla Wang was also unrivaled in Europe. But now, compared to so many Saint Kings and half-step sacred venerates, he felt as small as an ant. Sigh, I knew that there would be a battle between the top 3 orthodoxies in the world, but I didn't expect it to happen so soon. This battle will determine the strongest orthodoxy in the world. It will affect both the East and the West, and its influence will be far-reaching. It can be said to be the most important battle in the past 2,000 years. No matter what the outcome is, it will definitely go down in history. Hera sighed meaningfully. It was the most colorful footnote to this world-shaking battle that involved the Eastern and Western orthodoxies. Wuxia Nalan family. Everything was arranged properly. Jiang Tian, however, held Qingyur's hand and said with a gentle smile, "Qingyur, I'm going to the southwest border to meet the scum of the Holy See. Go back to Sidoni's training hall." "I'll go with you," Zhao Xueqing insisted, looking worried. "No. You're pregnant now, so you can't fight. If you go, I'll have to split my attention to protect you." Jiang Tian shook his head and said with a smile, "Be good. You have to go back to Tianqing School's headquarters. Situ Xiao is already on his way. He'll escort you back." "Okay, I believe you. My husband is invincible." Zhao Xueqing was a righteous person. Although she was worried about Jiang Tian, she could only suppress her worries in the bottom of her heart. Jiang Tian looked apologetic and said with a smile, "Also, I might have to go out for a while this time. When the time comes, you'll have to represent the entire Tianqing school." "Going out again?" Qingyur's eyes were filled with sadness and disappointment. She was not feeling well at the moment, and her mood was also affected. Of course, she wanted Jiang Tian to accompany her. Ever since she was pregnant, she had spent less time with Jiang Tian than with him. She did not feel good about it. "Cut the weeds and dig up the roots." Jiang Tian smiled bitterly and said, "I want to destroy the dimensional worlds behind the 2 orthodoxies." Actually, Jiang Tian wanted to collect spirit energy revival seeds to save Qingyur and his daughter's lives. However, he did not want to say it out loud and make Qingyur worry. Jiang Tian left behind the Stellar Sky Domain's spirit energy revival seed, and gave Qingyur the method to absorb and use it. This way, during the time Jiang Tian was away, this seed could at least prolong her and her child's lives. "The child and I will wait for your safe return." Qingyur kissed Jiang Tian's face a few times. She was reluctant to part with him. The couple hugged each other tightly. "I heard that it's a 3rd-grade dimensional world. Its strength is even more terrifying. You have to be careful. Qing'er gave Jiang Tian a few more instructions before she bade Jiang Tian farewell with tears in her eyes. She took a private plane with Situ Xiao and returned to Sidoni. After Qing'er left, a violent killing intent rose from Jiang Tian's body, causing the surrounding temperature to plummet. He said in a cold voice, "That's right. With Qing'er's wish fulfilled, I can finally go on a killing spree and completely eradicate the Holy See and Brahmin. The key is that they should have two passageways that connect the heavenly state and the Thunder Sound Mountain dimensional world. This time, I have to kill my way over no matter what." Feeling Jiang Tian's terrifying killing intent, Nalan Bo, who was beside him, was terrified. He suddenly knelt down and pleaded with tears in his eyes. "Master Kong, Nalan Li and the others have already betrayed the Nalan family and are heading to the Lansang River. Let them go. Why are you kneeling?" Jiang Tian helped him up and smiled faintly. Nalan Bo wanted to say something but stopped. But after a moment of hesitation, he still spoke with tears in his eyes. It turned out that Nalan Li and the others didn't believe that Jiang Tian could defeat the Holy See and Brahmin at all. So they left without saying goodbye and went to the Lansang River. They only left a letter saying that they were leaving the Nalan family and would never follow Jiang Tian and cause trouble for others. In Nalan Bo's opinion, Nalan Li and the others probably weren't going to start a war with the Holy See and Brahmin. It was very likely that Nalan Li would beg for mercy and mercy from the Holy See and Brahmin. He would stand on the opposite side of Jiang Tian and fight to the death with Jiang Tian. After hearing this, Jiang Tian smiled faintly. "Don't worry, I won't kill them. No matter what, they are Qing'er's family." Nalan Bo hated the behavior of Nalan Li and the others, but he could only sigh helplessly. At this time, even if Jiang Tian had killed Nalan Li and the others, he couldn't blame Jiang Tian. After all, Jiang Tian had given them many chances, but they kept provoking him. With Jiang Tian's strength, he could have crushed them long ago. "Grandpa, I'm leaving." Jiang Tian left a soul-devourer doppelganger here, and turned into a stream of light that pierced through heaven and earth, flying toward the southwest border. Nalan Li also called the butler and hurried to the airport to chase after Jiang Tian. At the source of the Lansang River, in the area of the Tangula Mountains, battles had broken out several times. The river was stained with blood, and the land was 10 miles wide. Corpses were piled up everywhere. It was like a scene from hell. In fact, at this stage, the Holy See, Brahmin, Huaxialong Formation, and Tianqing School had not used their trump cards. At the moment, only the vanguard forces clashed to test each other's strength, but it was already very tragic. The strength of the forces involved, and the number of overlords who were injured and killed were far more than the battle between the Tianqing School and the Gathering of Darkness at the North Bay of Sidoni. By now, the Holy See and Brahmin had lost a saint and 8 immortal state warriors, whose strength was comparable to or even stronger than the Lord of Bloodcane. There were at least a few hundred transcendent state overlords who had been killed or injured. After all, either the Brahmin or the Holy See was more powerful than the Gathering of Darkness. It had to be known that the Blood Clan, werewolves, dark wizards, spellcasters, and other dark forces had long been suppressed by the church and Brahmins to the point that they were barely surviving, not daring to come out. It was Nie Mingyuan who rose and gathered them with an iron fist. But the Holy See and Brahmin were different. They were on the bright side and had kept their orthodoxy intact. They had more than 1 billion followers and were as rich as a country. And they had always had special guards and private soldiers, which was not something the Gathering of Darkness could compare with. The Deer Peak in the north of the source of the Lansang River was more than 5,000 meters above sea level. It was the temporary headquarters of the Tianqing School and the Huaxialong Formation. This type of transcendent struggle between orthodoxies did not involve the imperial court. The various countries would not interfere, allowing them to cross the border. Wuxia had also opened up a battlefield with a radius of dozens of miles, and ordinary people had been urgently evacuated. Before the battle, the two sides had made a contract that neither side would disturb the mortal world or use firearms. However, every country knew that once the first orthodoxy was established, the impact would be far-reaching. The temporary headquarters was built in a dense forest. There were many modern battlefield command systems and communication devices. all of which were from the Sky Army of Sidoni. The commander of this war was Yi Tianren. At the same time, a wave of enemy attacks had just been repelled by the Lancang River. There were bodies and broken limbs everywhere. Chapter 997. Yi Tianren was leading the Tianqing school and the Long Formation heroes to patrol the Lancang River area. He smiled and said, "If you worship their orthodoxy, you will receive blessings in the future. After you die, your soul will enter heaven and West Earth. For thousands of years, have you ever seen a soul ascend to heaven and West Earth? The afterlife is illusory. Placing your happiness on the grace of gods and Buddhas is a coward's move. You have to fight for your own happiness. You have to fight for your own resources. The heavenly star small world wants to plunder Earth. Do you think heaven and West Earth will go easy on them? I once followed Master to Star World. The gods and Buddhas in the sky still beat them up. Master is now the ruler of Heavenly Star and has endless resources. He has broken through several levels. Hua Qingtian, Zhao Yuankuan, Wei Feilong, Yi Zhantian and the others were all excited. Chao Jinjia even cheered. Her beautiful eyes shone brightly as she said, "Did Immortal Master Jiang really do it? That's amazing." Master said that Earth is the homeland of the multidimensional worlds, and those so-called immortals are of the same ancestry as us. Yi Tianren smiled proudly and said angrily, "They took spirit chi from ancient Earth. It's fine if they don't return it, but they definitely don't have the right to touch Earth. Those Brahmin and Holy See think highly of themselves and don't do anything productive. But in history, when have they ever stopped the gods and Buddhas when they sent disasters?" Yi Tianren's face was full of sarcasm. They think that it's reasonable for the humans on Earth to be killed and starved to death. Because humans are sinful, they will only kneel and kowtow, burn incense, and repent forever. But why are humans sinful? Aren't West Earth and Heaven greedy? Are the Holy See and Brahmin clean? In order to protect the religious power and plunder for benefits, they also kill people. Just as he was speaking, suddenly, an old man dressed in red walked out of the dense forest. He had a high-nosed bridge and deep eyes. He had a head full of silver hair, and was slightly bald. He was suffused with holy light as he held the scepter in his hand. He smiled and said, "Your Excellency Deva is right. However, if the gods were to send a disaster like the Great Flood of prehistoric times, or the plague of insects and locusts in Egypt, would you be able to withstand it?" Favorite of the Pope, First Bishop and Council of the Holy See of the Vatican, Saint Laurent. Many experts behind Yi Tianren exclaimed in surprise. "Why should I resist?" Yi Tianren's fighting spirit surged. He flung his sleeves and snorted coldly. "Whoever brings us disaster, we'll just kill them. When Heavenly Country sent disaster, it killed Heavenly Country. When West Earth sent disaster, it shattered West Earth. Aren't they just gods and Buddhas? Just lift it." Saint Laurent smiled but didn't say anything. His eyes were full of mockery, as if Yi Tianren was extremely stupid. Behind him, a monk in linen clothes slowly walked out. This elder had the skin of a chicken and the head of a crane. His body was shriveled and extremely old. He was draped in linen clothes that looked like sheets, revealing his blade-like ribs. He looked like a holy hero as he smiled and said, "Junior brother Deva, have you eaten?" "The disciple of Kasayapa Guru, the little guru of suffering," someone exclaimed. "Why did he call Senior Deva, Brother Deva?" Sasaki Haisha was puzzled. "My father used to cultivate in Brahmin. According to my father, this person is already 400 years old." Yi Zhantian explained as he stared at the little guru of suffering with a burning gaze. In Brahmin, there was a saying of the reincarnation of a living god. Kasayapa Guru was the reincarnation of a living god. He was as high as the patriarch. On normal days, the little guru of suffering was in charge of the entire sect. He was equivalent to the current sect lord and hierarch. "Brother Deva, you're old and tired. Why are you here?" Yi Tianren smiled. "Huaxia is a demon. We have to get rid of him. This old man will not retreat until he succeeds." The little guru of suffering put his palms together and smiled. "Brother Deva, you should eat more. You won't have the chance to eat in the future." In the early years of the Republic of China, I saw the flames of war. My heart was in pain. I went to Brahman to study the Dharma and find the way to freedom. We talked through the night and confirmed each other's knowledge. We can be considered as fellow disciples. Back off, I won't kill you. Heavenly Yi laughed and said with a sharp look in his eyes, that's right. But you should remember to eat when you go back. Eat more of the food of the mortal world. Don't forget that you are asking for the fate of the mortal world. The food you eat is also the food of the earth. Eat more and taste more of the mortal world. Don't let yourself live too high and too far away. High and far away is to avoid vulgarity. Suffering smiled proudly. We believe in God and asceticism. We have to stay away from the disturbances of the world. If we are tainted, it will be difficult for us to escape. Back then, when you were meditating in Brahman, I told you that if you want to be quiet and become a god, you have to be detached from worldly affairs. You have to be silent in body and mind. Can you become a true god? Yi Tianren sneered. The little guru of suffering hesitated. Saint Laurent smiled and said, it's not impossible for us to enter heavenly kingdom and West Earth. If we don't believe in God, God will send disaster. Your Excellency Deva and your master, Kong Techu, shouldn't you think about the people of the world? Do you know how many lost civilizations in history were destroyed by the hands of the gods of heavenly kingdom? Some legends are just false bravado. Yi Tianren sneered. Here is a scripture called Ancient Catastrophe Scroll. It was unearthed in Europe 30,000 years ago. It recorded the scene of the disaster that befell heavenly kingdom. Saint Laurent handed over an ancient Hebrew parchment scroll and said, Father, be careful. Yi Zhantian and the others warned. Don't worry. Yi Tianren took the scroll and flipped through it page by page. He used to live in the Lulichang area of Yanjin in the late Qing dynasty and worked as a librarian in the library of Yanjin University. He used to be friends with Li Ji, Chen Yinka, Wu Mi and other archaeologists and scholars. He was influenced by them and learned Chinese and Western medicine. He could recognize all kinds of ancient words, such as oracle bone inscriptions, Sanskrit, Hebrew. He was no less than a great scholar and a master of the Republic of China. Yi Tianren flipped through the pages slowly. Saint Laurent and the little guru of suffering next to him didn't urge him. Saint Roland even explained in a tepid tone, that's right. Atlantis, the Lemuria of the Pacific tropics, ancient Egypt and other civilizations were all destroyed by Heavenly Kingdom and West Earth because they didn't believe in God. Your Excellency, if you think about the people in the world, you should know how to decide, right? How to decide? According to your thinking, isn't it the same as kneeling and surrendering? Yi Tianren returned the scroll and sneered disdainfully. Then he sighed and said leisurely, I experienced the Great Drought of 1942 in the Central Plains. Millions of people left their homes and fled for their lives, exchanging children for food. At that time, there were missionaries who urged people to believe in the Holy See. Countless starving people knelt and begged God for food and rain. But it didn't rain and there was no food. In the end, the starving people died. The Central Plains was empty. From then on, I knew that people can't rely on God. They have to rely on themselves to fight for happiness. Now Wuxia doesn't believe in the Holy See or Brahman, but everyone has clothes to wear, food to eat, and meat to eat. There are planes and aircraft carriers. Even if there are natural disasters, earthquakes, tsunamis, floods, and snowstorms, we will unite and overcome the difficulties together. It's impossible for people to die. Fellow Taoists, we Wuxia people don't believe in God. We only believe in ourselves. We believe in our own hands. We believe that hard work can be exchanged for a good harvest. In the face of invasion, we believe that as long as we dare to draw our swords, we will definitely be able to exchange for peace. We also believe that our fate is in our own hands, not God or heaven. Your Excellency, please reconsider. You have to let your master, Kong Techu, reconsider. Saint Laurent, the bishop in council, bowed and said, If my master was alarmed and took action, your Holy See would have been trampled to death. Yi Tianren laughed. Devil, this is what a devil is. The little guru of suffering shouted angrily. If you want faith, that's fine too. Yi Tianren shouted coldly. Go back to your Ganges and Vatican. What are you doing here in Wuxia? Are you forcing us to believe as well? What kind of logic is that? We came to Wuxia to preach and eliminate the devil, the little guru of suffering said with a solemn expression. Saint Laurent nodded and said slowly, "You have fallen too deeply into the devil's path. You need faith to purify you." What is the devil's path? Where is the devil's path? Yi Tianren mocked. Kong Teichu is the devil's path. You are also the devil's path. If you don't believe in God, you are the devil's path. If you don't have faith, you are the devil's path. The little guru of suffering said coldly. Today we are going to eliminate the devil's path and kill you all. Everyone looked around. Abbots, ascetics, crusade generals, missionaries, ascetics, and even some overlords from the dark world came from all directions. There were more than 3,000 people. They were so dense that they covered the sky and the sun, surrounding Yi Tianren and the others in the center. You said that you won't be tainted by the secular world. In the end you still want to fight. You should have said so earlier. Yi Tianren's murderous aura suddenly rose to the sky. He snorted coldly. I thought you were going to follow the rules of the martial arts world and fight one-on-one. I didn't expect you to play tricks on the battlefield too. There are quite a lot of people here. Saint Laurent shook his head and said, Haha, we have no choice. Please forgive us, Your Excellency. Little Guru of Suffering, fellow cultivators, let's send Your Excellency and the people of Tianqing School to heaven together. Haha, you think you can scare us with so many people? If you want to fight, then let's fight. Yi Tianren snorted coldly. Instantly, the area within a radius of 10 miles was filled with killing intent. It was as if the air had frozen. Chapter 998. Holy light emanated from the Holy Sea's powerhouses, while Brahmin disciples' Sanskrit power surged. Holy light condensed behind their backs, and their auras swallowed mountains and rivers. The Holy See and Brahmin had been around for a long time, even longer than the Kunlun sect. Tianqing School was even younger. The Holy See was monotheistic and only believed in the God of heaven. The Brahmin, on the other hand, believed in many gods. They worshipped all kinds of natural gods, but they were also monotheistic. In their teachings, many natural gods were under the command of the mysterious power called Brahman, and obeyed the will of Brahman. Blessings of the God of heaven. Come. The overlords of the Holy See looked pious and drew a cross in front of their chests. Suddenly, holy light gushed out and filled the air. The holy light condensed and formed all kinds of holy objects of the gods. Holy grails, holy spears, thorny flower, holy crowns, crosses, holy shields, and long swords. The Brahmin were different. Many overlords were chanting spells quickly. The Brahmin power condensed into the statues of the gods recorded in the Brahmin scriptures. Some had human heads and snake bodies, some had bull heads and horse faces, some had 3 heads and 6 arms, some had elephant trunks and human faces, and some had turtle backs and bamboo staffs. There were all kinds of natural gods that they worshipped. On the other hand, the cultivators of Wuxia were in a completely different state. All of them had condensed their qi into weapons. They had completely relied on their own cultivation, or they relied on weapons to condense qi weapons to enhance the effect. Zhao Yuankuan shouted angrily and stomped his foot. A pair of qi fists condensed in front of him as if they were solid. Then spirit qi condensed into a shield. Hua Qingtian was in charge of the Heavenly Troop and the Heavenly Strategy Battalion. His god-killing spear shook. Crack, crack. Thick true essence rolled and rubbed against each other, forming a golden warrior. He was riding a horse, with a tiger seal and a military seal on his waist. He held a shield and a long spear in his hand. His eyes were burning with anger, and his face was also Hua Qingtian's. Xin Mange was in charge of alchemy. Her face turned cold and her jade-white right hand shook. A golden cauldron mysterious phenomenon formed by veritable essence energy floated up in front of Xiao Chun. However, it was as heavy as a mountain. Adept Redleaf was in charge of the Weapon Refinement Hall. His true essence gushed out and formed a giant black hammer with flames coiling around it. As the law enforcement elder, Sasaki Ocean Sand was in charge of the sex punishment and meritorious service evaluation. This woman's tachi swept out and her breath gushed out. What she transformed into was not a god, but a scale and a ruler. Kill. Wolf King Alexander roared angrily. Suddenly, its body grew taller, and its hair stood out, forming a full moon shadow in front of it. The moonlight spread out, and a wild wolf that was more than 10 meters tall howled at the moon. Huanglinger, who had just come out of seclusion, did not say a word. She raised her eyebrows, turned around, and waved the heavenly source wooden staff repeatedly. Suddenly, multicolored true essence gushed out from his body, constantly changing. Colorful flowers fluttered in the wind, and green branches swayed around him. Tang Linglong pinched her fingers together and shouted. Sword Chi burst out. Clang, 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 clang. Hundreds of flying swords floated around her like a school of silver fish. This was the crystallization of their years of cultivation, since the establishment of Tianqing School. Almost all of them could condense their chi forms, and their apparitions had spirituality, almost like a second primordial spirit. From this, it could be seen that Tianqing School was different from the Holy See and Brahmin. The Holy See and Brahmin believed in gods, and the apparitions behind them were all apparitions of gods or things used by gods. Everyone in Tianqing School, on the other hand, used their own special physiques, specialties, or a certain profession under their jurisdiction to create apparition weapons. They each had their own specialties and strengths. Applying what he had learned, combining knowledge with action. They did not seek help from gods or Buddhas, but sought help from themselves. There was never a savior, nor did they rely on gods or emperors. What kind of orthodoxy is Tianqing School? A Brahmin elder with drooping ears and shoulders shouted angrily. What kind of nonsense are they cultivating? They even took in wild beasts like the wolf clan as their subordinates. They've really fallen into the devil's path. They're all a bunch of unorthodox demons who don't respect gods. My master once said that demons may not be evil, and humans may not be good. Everything depends on your actions. If you're of one mind, you're my kind. Yi Tianren smiled. Wolf King Alexander serves humans and guards Sidoni. Why don't we accept him? We don't respect gods? In fact, why should we respect gods? We're all doing it with our own abilities. Relying on gods and Buddhas is unorthodox. We don't respect gods. Everything can be used. Mortals who practice their own professions to the extreme are gods themselves. This is the purpose of Tianqing School. Haha, according to you, we're inferior to ordinary people even if we cultivate. Instead, we have to work for mortals. St. Lawrence's eyes were disdainful as he snorted coldly. That's right. My master once said that the great Tao is nothing more than the daily use of the common people. Heavenly Yi was calm and composed. He chuckled and said, There's nothing noble about being a cultivator. The path of saints is just to let everyone know. Otherwise, even if it's a heaven-defying study, it's just empty talk. The way of heaven is to take from the surplus and make up for the deficiency. The strong should fight to protect the weak. The hot blood of the strong should also flow for the weak. Everyone, this is the great love of the world. It's not as hypocritical as you people who use the gods to scare the people. Are you touched by the purpose of Tianqing School? Why don't you turn over a new leaf and join our Tianqing School? Haha, Yi Tianren, you don't respect gods and still dream of becoming gods. You've fallen too deeply into the path of demons. Saint Laurent laughed. One of the crusade generals in the crowd snorted coldly. Kill. As soon as the words came out, true essence erupted. Holy light filled the air, energy surged, and killing intent soared into the sky. The cold wind suddenly became bone-chilling. A battle was about to break out. Kill. Violent roars came, and immediately thunder shook the sky. The sound shook 10 kilometers. The battle broke out in an instant. In an instant, violent waves of air rushed in all directions and razed the forest to the ground. The trees that could be hugged by a person were suddenly turned into powder. Boulders rolled on the ground like millstones. This battle was far more intense than the battle between Tianqing School and the Covenant of Darkness. Although the Covenant of Darkness had many powerhouses, compared to the Holy See and Brahmin orthodoxies, there were still many sage kings here. After nearly a year of recuperation, Tianqing School's strength was not what it used to be. Everyone had achieved something. When the battle started, blood splattered on the spot. Powerhouses fell one after another. The Brahmin guardian elder with droopy ears and shoulders immediately went to find the Moon Wolf King. The collision of the two mortal deity powerhouses caused sparks to fly. The mountains and rivers collapsed and the sun and moon dimmed. The ascetic monk with droopy ears and shoulders was 300 years old. He was proficient in teaching and spells. He worshipped, and communicated with the bloodthirsty golden-scaled serpent god. The Moon Wolf King used to lead the Russian Winter Army, and was a close friend of the Russian Emperor. He had been on the battlefield all his life, and had gone through hundreds of battles. He had annihilated families, armies, sects, and countries. After years of careful guidance from Jiang Tian and his wife, he had reached the level of mortal deity, and was the mainstay of the Tianqing school. As soon as the Moon Wolf King's moon turbine clashed with the serpent god's mystic art, moonlight gushed out and formed a sharp moon-shaped turbine surrounded by blade auras and spears. These strange phenomena seemed to be real, but they were all formed from Alexander's life essence. A god with a human head and a snake body with 4 arms was entrenched in a sea of blood and bones. Its golden scales were shining and it was a dozen meters tall. The golden-scaled serpent god used to be the long-eared Brahmin guardian elder. Compared to the mighty serpent god, he was much smaller. The sea of blood filled with floating corpses was broken through by a 6-meter-tall violent figure. Demonic aura filled the sky as demonic winds blew. It was the moon-worshipping Wolf King riding on the azure wolf avatar. I don't believe in God. I don't worship the moon. I am the wolf god. I am God. Die. Alexander bared his teeth and his face was fierce, cruel, and bloodthirsty. He held the moon turbine in his hand, and kept shooting out moonlight weapons to destroy everything. The azure wolf avatar seemed to be real. It stepped on the moonlight, and its green eyes shot out cold light. How dare you call yourself a god? How dare you blaspheme the messenger of God? The long-eared guardian elder sneered. His hands formed 1,000 lotus hand seal, and he chanted a spell in a loud and clear voice. He cast 2 hand seals at the moon-worshipping Wolf King. The golden-scaled serpent god twisted its waist and threw 2 punches at the Moon Wolf King. Its long tail swept across the sky like a missile, and was powerful enough to crush a battleship. Unexpectedly, the Moon Wolf King didn't dodge, and allowed the 2 punches to hit his head and shoulders. He was sent flying more than 10 meters away by the tail. However, he twisted his waist and stabilized himself. The huge force under his feet crushed the rocks and sent sparks flying. He didn't stop and closed in on the long-eared guardian elder. He shook his arms and the moon turbine flew out. The moonlight turned into sabers, spears, shields, swords, and hammers. Sabers, spears, shields, swords, and hammers. A moonlight saber cut off the long-eared guardian elder's hands. A long spear pierced through his lower abdomen. A shield smashed his skull. A sword light slit his throat, and a huge hammer hammered his back. Beside them, the azure wolf avatar and the golden-scaled serpent god were fighting. The sea of blood surged and bones flew. Moonlight gushed out and thunder rumbled. You didn't dodge? The long-eared guardian elder was like a bloody gourd. He was lifted in the air by the Moon Wolf King's spear. His head exploded and he spat out blood. In mid-air, another huge shield came crashing down, smashing him into a pulp of flesh and bones. Idiot! On the battlefield, victory or defeat is decided by 1 or 2 moves. What's there to dodge? The battlefield is a killing technique. Competing with you in spells is like using my weakness to attack your strength. The Moon Wolf King laughed maniacally, but he kept spitting out blood. Chapter 999. The big-eared guardian elder's incantation merged with the statue and borrowed the power of the believer's faith. He was as strong as a mountain. The golden-scaled serpent god's 2 punches and tail had almost destroyed his internal organs. At least 3 of his ribs were broken, and his shoulder was shattered. He was in so much pain that he grimaced. Old wolf catch. Shin Mange flicked her finger, and a healing and pain-relieving pill shot over. Thank you, Miss Mange. The moon-worshipping Wolf King opened his mouth wide and swallowed the pill. Kuang Linger's spiritual wood wedges fell like rain, piercing a crusade general into a sieve and nailing him to the ground. Then she turned around and pointed the Tianyuan wooden stick at the Wolf King. Life creation. Boundless vitality emerged from the tip of the Tianyuan wooden stick, and turned into green branches that entered the moon-worshipping Wolf King's wounds. In just 3 breaths, the moon-worshipping Wolf King's wounds healed quickly. Suddenly, a holy light cross fell from the sky. It was at least 30 meters long and pressed the moon-worshipping Wolf King to the ground with a thud. An abbot charged over. He was a half-step holy king. He held an ancient scripture in his left hand and drew a cross in front of his chest. As his right hand drew down, holy light crosses flew out of his chest. They were dazzling, and there were shadows of angels dancing around them. The holy light cross was as heavy as a mountain, and pressed the moon-worshipping Wolf King to the ground. His bones were broken, and he spat out blood. Four-legged hairy beast, you were once chased away by the holy sea, and went into hiding. How dare you challenge us now? What did Kong Techu give you to make you work so hard for him? The abbot sneered as he suppressed the Wolf King. His eyes were filled with disdain. When did the Tianqing school offend you? Why did the Holy See want to kill us? St. Paul committed heinous crimes and killed countless families. You call that loving the world as your own? Tang Linglong roared, her jade-like hands fluttering as she flicked her fingers. Flying swords tore through the air like bolts of lightning. They were densely packed and pierced towards the abbot. Shield of holy light, block for me. How can Wuxia's flying sword hurt me? The abbot opened his right hand, and dazzling holy light gushed out from his palm, forming a shield of light, intending to block the flying sword. Ding ding dang dang. Sparks flew in all directions, as if a rainstorm was hitting a banana leaf. The abbot was forced to retreat continuously. His body trembled violently, and he almost fell down. The corner of his mouth was stained with blood. Unexpectedly, a spear tore through the air like it could pierce through the sun and moon, piercing through the abbot's chest. It was Hua Qingtian's champion avatar that had attacked, directly piercing through the abbot's heart. Hua Qingtian, I will judge you with the fate of the gods. Go to hell. Slay the evil. Kill these Chinese devils who don't believe in God. Let them enter purgatory. Crash. The abbots of the top monasteries under the Holy See were all saints, far surpassing the immortal state. Their eyes were about to pop out of their sockets. They each held a cross-light sword and flew in the air, surrounding Hua Qingtian. They had used the sacred art of the Holy See, the cross-light sword art. In an instant, the sword light shot into the sky. The holy light was dazzling and extremely sharp. It was indeed the top sword art of the Holy See. Hua Qingtian's avatar was shattered. He was forced to retreat, his chest stained with blood. Sister Ling, lend me some fire. Shen Mange stepped on the air and soared several hundred meters into the sky, like a swallow leaping into the water. She shouted and suddenly smashed down with her hands. In an instant, a true essence furnace with a radius of 10 meters descended from the sky and enveloped the 3 abbots. The true essence furnace was taught to her by Jiang Tian. It was an evolution of the great sun furnace of the sky-swallowing demonic art. Shen Mange was only at the late stage of qi refinement. She could form the furnace, but it would be difficult for her to make it powerful. She needed to borrow external forces. Here it comes. Huang Linger had been cultivating in seclusion for the past few days. She had already reached the foundation establishment level, and had almost reached the phenomenal success level of the divine art of withering glory. She yelled and waved the Tianyuan wooden stick. Beams of spirit wood qi as thick as an arm turned into towering trees, logs and branches and flew into the furnace. Damn it, you old farts are still alive. You must be a few hundred years old. I can use you to make a peerless elixir. Shen Mange cursed and sneered. She operated her cultivation method and stimulated her true essence. Boom. The spirit wood qi exploded in the furnace and turned into flames. The 3 abbots screamed and struggled on the ground. They were burned to ashes in a blink. Clang. Suddenly, a leader of the crusade rushed over. He swung his giant hammer and smashed Shen Mange dozens of meters away. Kill this demoness. A few Brahmin cultivators immediately surrounded Shen Mange and attacked her with all kinds of secret techniques. 10 kilometers away from the battlefield, on a mountain called Qingsong Peak near Deer Peak, many stern-looking Wuxia experts were standing on top of the mountain. Some of them looked at the battlefield through the screen of the battlefield command system. Some looked directly at the battlefield at Lansong River. There were men and women, old and young. There were hundreds of them. Jin Sohyun and Lady Wu were among them. However, the strength of those two people was not the strongest. The one with the most powerful aura was a young man wearing bronze armor and holding a long halberd. He was tall and had a standard square face. He had a wide forehead and cheeks, high cheekbones, and a thick chin. He had 2 large mustaches on his upper lip. His facial features were rough, and his limbs were thick. He looked like a terracotta soldier from the Qin dynasty. He was only in his 20s and stood motionless. However, his gaze was arrogant and disdainful. His violent, imposing aura that was lofty like a mountain and swept through the surroundings suppressed everyone to the point they lowered their heads. He was an earth-level deity cultivator of the royal family. Young Mastering, Kong Taechu has said that we don't need to interfere with the reclusive royalty. Why should we meddle in other people's business? Jin Sohyun looked at the man in bronze armor with fear. He waved his folding fan and said with a smile. This man was the descendant of the Qin dynasty, the leader of the younger generation of the Ying family, Ying Su. Not only was he powerful and talented, but he was also the leader of Wuxia's reclusive royalty alliance. He had a high position and was a man of his word. Not to mention Jin Sohyun, even his father, the head of the Jin family, Jin Luanxiong, had to treat him with respect. Kong Taechu is too arrogant, isn't he? How can he not know what's good for him? Ying Su raised his thick eyebrows and suppressed his anger. His words were like thunder in spring. Every single word rumbled like a cannonball, and it shook the surrounding trees to the point they rustled as if they were being sliced apart by a gale. His eyes were cold and his temperament was wild like a peerless general. He shouted angrily. Now, except for the Holy See and the Brahmin, the reclusive royalty of Wuxia has no reason to stand by and do nothing. Are we going to let them destroy our homeland? He turned his head and glanced at Jin Zixuan in a daze as he questioned. Why? What? Is Kong Taechu afraid that our reclusive royalty will rob him of his benefits? The Ying family's action is to protect Wuxia, okay? Did you say that clearly? Jin Sohyun felt a chill run down his spine when he was glanced at like a cold knife, but he still insisted. Of course I said it clearly. We took action for the sake of the common people and the safety of Wuxia, he said with a hoodlum face. But Kong Taechu is too arrogant. He has this confidence. In short, the Jin family and the Li family plan to stand by and do nothing. At this time, Naylan Li and the others also fanned the flames and complained about Jiang Tian's atrocities. Naturally, they wouldn't say that Jin Sohyun coveted Sidoni. In their mouths, Jiang Tian became a supercilious and arrogant madman who didn't know what was good for him. Young Mastering Su, in my opinion, Kong Taechu doesn't put you in his eyes at all. He wants to take this opportunity to show off his strength and suppress our reclusive royalty. He even wants to trample us under his feet. Naren Qinghe moved to Ying Su's side and smiled like a flower. Although her words were soft and gentle, they were vicious and murderous. Bitch, get lost. The reclusive royalty is being discussed. Since when is it your turn to interrupt? Lady Wu shouted at the woman, and then waved her sharp knives. She was eager to try. She smiled and said, Ying Su, in my opinion, let's not care about Kong Taechu's opinion. Anyway, the enemy is right in front of us. How can we let them go? Let's just kill them directly. Lady Wu, why are you so cheap? Kong Taechu is so arrogant. Let's see how long he can be arrogant. In the crowd, a young man in a monk's robe said arrogantly. He seemed to be full of dissatisfaction with Jiang Tian. Look, their army of 3,000 is completely beating Tianqing School to the point that they can't fight back. Chapter 1000. This man was only 27 or 28 years old. His forehead was bulging, his face was covered with spots, and his beard was sparse. His eyes were bright, and his eyebrows were thick and straight. His nose was big, and his nostrils were upturned. His ears were long, almost reaching his shoulders. His mouth was big and wide, and his chin was much more prominent than his forehead. His appearance made people feel that he was lofty, majestic, fierce, cold, and ungrateful. This man was a descendant of the Zhu family, the famous royal family, Zhu Shaoqian. After the fall of the Ming dynasty, the descendants of the Zhu family had to go to Huangjue Temple as disciples. In fact, Huangjue Temple was not a small temple like the legends said. It was a hidden sect. Zhu Yuanzong had also become a monk there. They kept a low profile, but they were very powerful. Zhu Shaoqian was now in the human immortal realm. His aura was only slightly weaker than Ning Su's, but he was stronger than Jin Sohyun and Lady Wu. If he showed his strength and could compete with the sect master, he would definitely shock the world. Zhu Shaoqian, what's the meaning of Kong Teichu's sarcastic remarks? Madame Wu Yaonang's face was filled with anger. What if the Huaxialong formation and Tianqing school can't hold on? Then the Holy See or the Brahmin will become the #1 orthodoxy, and the people of Huaxia will have to worship them? But Kong Teichu has already offended the people of the Stellar Sky domain. Do you think he has a way to survive? He will die sooner or later. A trace of fear flashed across the face of the Li family's crown prince, Li Guangkol, and he said coldly, "Our ancestors were all helped by the dimensional world. We are their agents. We should declare war on Kong Teichu. Stop making a ruckus." Ingsu was annoyed. He waved his hand and shouted angrily, "Let's wait and see. If Yi Tianren and the others can hold on, then let's mind our own business. Go home and eat mutton steamed buns. Damn it, we've been fighting for days and nights, I'm starving." As soon as these words were spoken, the entire place fell into dead silence. No one dared to say a word as they quietly watched the battlefield. The situation of the battle became even more tragic. Tianqing School and Huaxialong Formation were heavily surrounded, and were even more passive. Beside the Lansong River, a great battle broke out. Experts from both sides fell like rain. The bishops of the Holy See, the abbots, and the generals of the crusade all stepped into the air, brandishing their weapons and spitting out holy light, stopping Huaqing Tian, Wei Feilong, Zhao Yuankuan, Huang Linger, Tang Linglong, and Shin Mange. The priests, protectors, elders, and ascetic monks of the Brahmin manifested their divine powers, and fought with the experts of the Long Formation, and the Huaxia Martial Arts Alliance. They had the advantage in numbers. 3,000 people surrounded the experts of Huaxia, who had less than 100 people, and gradually gained the upper hand. However, they bypassed Yi Tianren. Yi Tianren looked sideways. Saint Laurent and the little guru of suffering, one holding a scepter and a cross, the other holding a Buddhist staff and an alms bowl, approached him. "Your Excellency, we have no choice but to offend you since you're so stubborn." The suffering little master glared at him like a Vajra and shouted coldly. He no longer called him junior brother, which meant that he had cut off the friendship of the past, and was going to kill. Deity slaying sword kill. Yi Tianren shouted and his body shook. Suddenly, the sword chi soared 1,000 meters into the sky. The sun and the moon dimmed, the wind and the clouds changed color, and lightning flashed and thunder rumbled. The broken iron sword on his back cried and jumped out of its sheath, turning into a bright green light about 100 meters long. It crossed 1,000 meters and slashed toward the two like a green rainbow. Saint Laurent stepped on the holy light and waved the cross in his hand. With a clang, he repelled the flying sword and said coldly, "Your Excellency, you're indeed amazing. You're almost the mighty immortal in the ancient legends of Huaxia. Unfortunately, the path to the stars has been cut off. You're not a reclusive royalty, so you have no chance to enter your immortal ruins. So you can't become a real deity or immortal in your life. Why don't you believe in the Holy See and have a chance to ascend to heaven? In your dreams." Yi Tianren attacked again and beat Saint Laurent back. "You're so stubborn. This old man is useless. I've practiced the 13 chapters of the Holy See, but I've only mastered half of the last chapter. Today, I'll use this incomplete chapter to challenge Your Excellency's Huaxia swordsmanship." Saint Laurent waved the cross, and the power of the holy light surged and turned into a cross-light sword, attacking Yi Tianren. The alms bowl in the little guru of suffering's hand flew up and covered the ground. A golden light gushed out, and in the golden light, there were gods everywhere. At the top were Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva, and Lord Vishnu. There were all kinds of gods below, all of them condensed from Brahman power. The little guru of suffering sneered. "Kasayapa Guru once taught me the 3 forms divine technique, and now I've mastered it. Today, this old man is here to challenge Your Excellency's deity slaying sword. Let's see if you can kill God." The little guru of suffering and the first bishop in council, Saint Laurent, were both brilliant figures in the Middle Ages. They were only one step away from becoming saints and immortals. If it weren't for the dimension behind them that ordered them to monitor Earth, they would have become immortals and gods long ago. Although Yi Tianren was a later generation, he had great opportunities. He was well versed in Confucianism, Buddhism and Taoism. He was once the world walker of the Kunlun sect, and also went to Brahmin, Holy See, and Buddhism to study and visit. He founded the Yellow Flame Iron Brigade and fought on the battlefield. He also entered Hongmeng and learned the deity-slaying sword technique. In the end, he was enlightened by Jiang Tian. At this time, he was well versed in martial arts, spells and cultivation. He was definitely one of the most powerful people in this era on this planet. The moment the three of them fought, the sky darkened, the void shattered, and rocks flew everywhere. The green sword light covered 10 miles, and the holy light filled the mountains. The power of Brahman seemed to break through the 9 heavens and 10 lands. Before this, with the strength of Saint Laurent and the little guru of suffering, or even just one of them, they could completely crush Yi Tianren, let alone working together. But now the two of them couldn't gain the upper hand at all. Whoosh! The sword light flashed, and the light of the East Sea was like 1,000 waves. The sword light overlapped and swept over like a raging wave. It crushed Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva, and Lord Vishnu into pieces. It blasted the golden light and hit the little guru of suffering. Whoosh! Saint Laurent waved his scepter and condensed many shields to block. At the same time, the holy light under his feet spread and his body swayed. Retreating a few hundred meters away, the little guru of suffering vomited blood. His clothes were torn and he flew backward. His face was full of shock and disbelief. Yi Tianren, you have only been in seclusion for 20 years. How did you become so powerful? You have reached the level of divine immortal? Your strength is too terrifying. Saint Laurent was also afraid. It was as if he had met Yi Tianren for the first time. More than 20 years ago, before Yi Tianren went into seclusion, he had also visited the Holy See once to exchange holy arts and Taoist techniques. The person in charge of receiving him was Saint Laurent. At that time, Saint Laurent thought that he had the strength to suppress Yi Tianren. But now he had no confidence at all. My rapid improvement this time was not because of my seclusion, but because of Master's guidance. Both of you, give up your weapons and surrender. You are no match for the heroes of Tianqing School and Wuxia. Yi Tianren held the broken iron sword in his hand and looked fierce. He had a strict aura that one man could hold the pass against 10,000 enemies. Saint Laurent, I will leave it to you to kill Yi Tianren. The little guru of suffering sneered and turned to attack the other heroes of Wuxia. Suddenly, the pressure on the heroes of Wuxia, who were already deep in the enemy group and struggling to hold on, doubled. God loves the world. Today, I summon the spirit of true God. Son of true God, Saint Adam, please come to my body and honor my life. Saint Laurent's face turned cold. He held the cross that had turned into a cross-light sword and prayed devoutly. Suddenly, holy light filled the air. The sword light moved in a wonderful rhythm. It was holy and glorious, as if it did not belong to this world at all. He looked fierce and shouted, "Lowly blasphemer, kneel at the feet of God and repent." Suddenly, from the depths of the sky, a vast, holy, and mighty aura turned into a pillar of holy light that penetrated the sky and the earth. It pierced through the clouds and split the sky, piercing through and enveloping Saint Laurent. Saint Laurent had undergone a strange change. A terrifying change. Fuck him, he is inviting God. On Qingsong Peak, Ingsu stared at Saint Laurent like cold lightning. Suddenly, his body shook and he shouted as if he was quarreling. Inviting God? Divine beating technique? Is there really a God in the Western Holy See? Hiss. There really is. Everyone looked over, and their faces were filled with terror. They were shocked and gasped in unison. Chapter 1001. Wuxia's spirit possession technique was also known as the invocation technique. The Western Holy See technique was known as the summoning of heroic spirits. The names were different but the essence was the same. Legend had it that there were countless immortals in the greater thousand worlds. This secret technique used a special unknown secret technique, incantation, and ritual to communicate with the immortals. Then, one would borrow the immortal's power to possess the body. No martial arts or spells could compare to it. Wuxia's spirit possession technique, or the invocation technique, had also declined. For example, in the northeastern region, there was a widespread practice of jumping gods and inviting gods to possess one's body. Usually it was a hedgehog, snake, or weasel that had cultivated into a spirit. It was called inviting yellow immortal, willow immortal, rat immortal, and so on. They weren't true gods yet, but they already had a certain level of magic power and could cure diseases and avoid disasters. Once a true god's heroic spirit was summoned, it was a power that didn't belong to this world. Sacred arts, Sanskrit, martial arts, spells, and so on had to stand aside. As for traditional martial arts and combat arts, they weren't even worth mentioning. Under the shroud of holy light, St. Lawrence's body also erupted with dazzling holy light, and a demonic vertical eye appeared between his eyebrows. At this time, the holy power all over his body had become 10 times, 100 times richer. His whole body was bright as if it was made of strange metal. He seemed to have become a different person. His facial features were distorted, and he looked even more holy and divine. Dazzling light shone like the sun in the sky. Waves of hair-raising power burst out and suppressed the area within a few kilometers. Even Yingsu and the others could feel it. Clang! Saint Laurent covered Yi Tianren with his palm. Endless holy light turned into a blazing sea of flames and intertwined to form the divine punishment law. It was like the Milky Way hanging upside down as it smashed down. Yi Tianren met it with his sword, but it immediately shattered. He spat out blood and flew backward. Yi Tianren rose into the air and stood proudly with his sword. He shouted, "The enemy is ferocious. Everyone retreat. I'll cover you." Retreat. All of a sudden, many experts from the Tianqing school and the Huaxiaolong formation displayed their unique skills and killed hundreds of people in a row, forcibly tearing a gap in the encirclement. Then they turned into streaks of light and ran in the direction of Deer Peak. Is the spirit of a true god so powerful? He can suppress the earth immortal Yi Tianren. At this moment, cries of surprise rang out on Pine Peak. Everyone had different reactions. Haha, Kong Teichu, oh Kong Teichu, you ignored my cooperation plan and underestimated the Holy See and the Brahmin. You are indeed ignorant. Now that the true God has descended and possessed the body of a heroic spirit, I'm afraid that Tianqing school and Huaxiaolong formation will be completely wiped out. It's good that they are destroyed. Our Aizenjoro family may be restored. Huaxia can't live without an emperor. Jin Sohyun, Nalan Li, and Naren Qinghe were excited, but their eyes were filled with gloating, and the corners of their mouths were twitching crazily. Prepare for battle. Tianqing school and Huaxiaolong formation can't hold on anymore. Yingsu's imperial aura soared. His body was surrounded by colorful light and auspicious dragon qi, as if he was roaring loudly. At this critical moment, he was still very righteous. Moreover, the Ying family had always been loyal and straightforward. When the Qin emperor rushed out of Tong Pass to destroy the 6 states and unify the world, they were proud, but Huaxia was their home. Young Master Ying, if we attack now, it's very likely that we will be completely wiped out. Zhu Shaoqian sneered and said disdainfully, if Kong Teichu is so capable, why doesn't he fight himself? We've shed blood and sacrificed countless lives. He's hiding behind us, but he's still talking nonsense. What kind of ability is that? I'm not fighting. Li Guangkol of the Li family also shook his head and said, the Li family is not fighting either. It's not like the Li family is in charge now. Didn't Kong Teichu say that he's going to take on 2 orthodoxies alone, and not let us meddle in other people's business? Since he has the ability to deal with it, let's just watch the show. Kong Teichu is arrogant and overconfident. Let's see how long he can be arrogant for. You're not fighting? You're not going to help? Yingsu was a little confused. He looked at the reclusive royalty and the dragon protection lineage in surprise. Save what? Jin Sohyun said disdainfully. Kong Teichu will not cooperate with us. What's more, he has offended the immortals of the Stellar Sky Domain. He will die sooner or later. Stellar Sky Domain, haha, ruins of immortals, immortals? Haha. Su's eyes widened, and his expression was complicated. At this moment he was a little impressed by Jiang Tian. Legend had it that the Ying family's ancestor, Qin Shi Huang, was manipulated by the dimensional world like a puppet. Qin Shi Huang sent Su Fu and 2,000 boys and girls to the east in search of the elixir of immortality, to resist the control of the ruins of immortality and the dimensional world. However, Qin Shi Huang still failed. Legend had it that when he was in the process of casting the gods of famous mountains to seek immortality, the East Patrol Sun warrior, Bo Langsha, was assassinated. That assassin used a giant hammer that weighed hundreds of kilograms to smash his car. At that time, a meteorite fell from the sky with the words, "The first emperor died and the land divided," engraved on it. There was also an immortal who shouted, "This year the ancestral dragon dies," and attacked Qin Shi Huang. The Ying family knew that Qin Shi Huang had offended the ruins of immortality and the dimensional world in order to seek immortality. They were the ones who attacked him. In fact, the ruins of immortality and the dimensional world were behind the changes of the dynasties of Wuxia in the future. However, Qin Shi Huang was not willing to be manipulated by the ruins of immortality and the dimensional world. He was not convinced, and today's Su was not convinced either. Jiang Tian dared to challenge the Stellar Sky Domain. Although it was not the strongest ruins of immortality, it was still a dimensional world. From this point, Su approved of Jiang Tian. Haha, Kong Teichu is extremely arrogant and condescending. He even dared to offend the Holy See and the Brahmin. Naran Qinghe also sneered disdainfully. But in fact he is completely a frog at the bottom of the well. He doesn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. What now? Tianqing School was still crushed like a dog. They are panicking like a stray dog. Nalan Li also snorted and said disdainfully, "He doesn't even dare to come because he will only be cannon fodder if he comes." He was extremely happy. "Aren't you Kong Teichu arrogant? Yes, my Nalan family can't do anything to you. But the Holy See and the Brahmin can control you. Jiang Tian, oh Jiang Tian. Why don't you come and see how your henchmen are being trampled?" Zhu Shaoqian touched his chin and snorted. "Doesn't Kong Teichu want to be surrounded by enemies? He even rejected our reclusive royalty's help. Then, let's fulfill his wish. Let's see how long he can last. If we continue to help him, won't we be cheap?" Li Guangkou also sneered and agreed. With Jin Sohyun and Nalan Li fanning the flames, almost all the reclusive royalty abandoned Jiang Tian. The hidden royal family considered themselves to be the son of heaven. They thought highly of themselves and were extremely arrogant. Helping Jiang Tian was already lowering their own status. They thought that Jiang Tian would be grateful, but who knew that Jiang Tian didn't appreciate it at all. Instead, he said that they were meddling in other people's business. How could they not be angry? "I don't care whether you fight or not. But the Wu family is going to fight." Lady Wu's eyes lit up. She waved her 2 swords and led Luo Fei and a group of female warriors to attack. Hey, stop. At this moment, a ray of light pierced through the sky and suddenly stopped. The martial demon lady did not release her blade, and looked over with a frown. She saw a handsome young man in a white outfit standing in the air. He seemed to be walking on an invisible ladder. His strength was definitely beyond the immortal state or even higher. Lady Wu was startled. She didn't know whether this person was a friend or a foe. Tianqing School is killing people. You people should stay away. Don't be scared. The young man was calm and composed as he spoke. Fuck, I have become an outsider. Lady Wu landed on the ground and looked up at the young man. She was so angry that she almost vomited blood. She was a descendant of the reclusive royalty and had killed many people from the Holy See and the Brahmin. How could she be looked down upon? Kong Teichu. Jin Sohyun saw Jiang Tian and his eyes narrowed. He then stepped forward and said sarcastically, "Are you blind? Don't you see that Saint Laurent has asked the true God Spirit to descend? Don't you see that the Crusade, the 6 great monasteries and the Brahmin army have defeated Tianqing School? Your Tianqing sect can't even withstand a single blow and is a disgrace. You still dare to spout such arrogant words at this moment. What true God spirit? It's just an avatar of his divine soul. Jiang Tian landed on Qingsong Peak and said with a disdainful smile, even if his real body is here, I can kill him easily. Don't worry, Yi Tianren will kill them soon. 3,000 overlords, none of them will be left alive. As soon as these words were spoken, the entire place fell into dead silence. Everyone looked at Jiang Tian, as if they were looking at a madman. The true God spirit has descended. How could you still dare to speak such arrogant words when we are completely crushing your troops? Ingsu looked at Jiang Tian in a daze and thought, is this guy as stupid as me? Zhu Shaoqian shook his head mockingly, as if he couldn't be bothered to explain anything to Jiang Tian. Li Guangkol also showed a disdainful look. Indeed, although Jiang Taichu was strong, he was still a commoner after all. He was not a disciple of a famous mountain or river, nor was he from a famous family. His knowledge was still too shallow. Perhaps he didn't even know what a true God spirit was. Chapter 1002. This time, the Crusade and the 6 great monasteries had joined forces with the Brahmin army. There were 3,000 top powerhouses, and Saint Laurent had even invited a true God spirit to possess him. His combat power was comparable to that of a holy master. The Tianqing school and the Huaxiaolong formation were no match for them. Even with the reclusive royalty, it would be difficult for them to compete. However, Kong Taichu said that he would wipe them out. This was simply crazy to the point of no bounds. Perhaps this was what they meant by, the ignorant are fearless. So he's Kong Taichu. How arrogant. Lady Wu wrinkled her beautiful nose and said coquettishly, little brother, I'm helping you out of kindness. Don't be so ungrateful. She laughed so hard that the branches of the flowers trembled and the waves were dazzling. Little brother, you're very handsome. Come to me. Let me check your body, and I'll help you kill them. The descendant of Wu Zetian? She's indeed a beauty who brings disaster. Her demonic aura is overwhelming. Jiang Tian smiled faintly. He scanned with his divine sense and understood. However, Jiang Tian was too lazy to argue with her. His face was cold as he said, don't be so lame. All of you quickly retreat. Kong Taichu, do you really have a way to deal with them? The martial demon lady's face was filled with curiosity. But your disciple has been beaten so badly. Why don't you do something? It's not time yet. Haste makes waste. Jiang Tian was calm and unruffled as he gazed at the battlefield. At this time, the powerhouses of the Holy See and the Brahmin were arrogant, and had already chased after them. Celestial Yi, with your insignificant cultivation, you still dare to act rashly. Do you think you can escape? Kneel and beg for mercy. Haha, what bullshit Tianqing school. What Kong Taichu. Compared to our Holy See and Brahmin, they are just rubbish. Saint Laurent and the little guru of suffering flew into the sky like rainbows piercing through the sun. Many experts were full of murderous intent as they taunted them smugly. Kill. Wipe them out. Only Kong Taichu is left. Kong Taichu is also trash. Kill Kong Taichu and occupy Tianqing school. The Holy See is the #1 orthodoxy in the world. Fuck you, the Brahmin is. Thousands of people from the Brahmin Corps, the Crusade, and the ashram shouted angrily. They rode on their Dharma artifacts, crossed the mountains and rivers, and chased after Yi Tianren and the others. On the other hand, Yi Tianren and the others didn't seem to dare to resist at all. They threw away their armor and fled in panic. Kong Taichu, when you rejected me, did you think that you would be chased like a stray dog today? Nalan Li also laughed smugly. He was instantly revived and said arrogantly, kneel down and beg for mercy. Hurry up and kneel and beg for mercy. If the reclusive imperial family and the dragon protector bloodline are in a good mood, we might help you fight the enemy. Kong Taichu, you are just a commoner. You have offended me many times before. Now that your life is at stake, you better apologize to me now. Jin Zixuan took a step forward and snorted coldly. My Aizenjoro family and the Holy See have some friendship. When the time comes, I will put in a good word for you. Maybe you will have a chance to live. In the Qing dynasty, Tang Ruowang, a missionary of the Holy See, had saved Xiaozhuang's life. When Kangxi saw him, he had to greet him as a disciple. In addition, famous missionaries such as Lang Shining had a good relationship with the royal family of the Qing dynasty. In fact, Jin Sohyun was the only one who could talk to the Holy See. Other than that, the royal family had no relationship with them. Jin Sohyun, you better kneel down and beg for mercy now, or I will kill you later. A cold killing intent flashed in Jiang Tian's eyes, and the corners of his mouth curved into a cruel smile. 2 days ago, Jiang Tian had let him go for fear that he would agitate Qing'er. But in fact, Jiang Tian still wanted to kill him. Now that he saw him, how could he let him go? Kong Teichu, in my eyes, you are just an ant. Tife. Insect. You are so presumptuous. Ridiculous. You overestimate yourself. Do you know that now I am your big savior, your only savior? Jin Sohyun was so angry that his whole body trembled. His face was livid. He flung his sleeves and shouted coldly. You will cry very loudly in a moment. They killed your disciple, and will kill you immediately. You don't know what is good for you. Mortals are mortals after all. You are so short-sighted that you don't know the principle of hiding your strength and uniting other forces. Naren Qinghe's face was full of disdain. She shook her head and snorted softly. Originally, she was very envious and jealous of Zhao Xueqing, but at this moment, she even sympathized with Zhao Xueqing. Such an idiotic husband had caused so much trouble. He had given up so many chances to save himself, and now he was doomed eternally. Jiang Tian would die, Tianqing School would be destroyed, and Zhao Xueqing would become a widow. No, she would even be killed by the Holy See. Oh my God! Are Tianqing School and Huaxiaolong Formation a bunch of idiots? How did they get into the gourd cave? Suddenly, Nalanli burst into laughter. His face was full of sarcasm. Everyone's face also changed. They looked at Yi Tianren and the others in disbelief, as if they were looking at a bunch of idiots. This gourd cave is like a gourd. Once someone blocks the entrance, they can't get out. Zhu Shaochen took out the battle map and said mockingly, Tianqing School's Heavenly Strategy Unit is said to be a godlike strategist. In my opinion, they are still lacking. They should read more about the art of war. A bunch of idiots. Only an idiot like Kong Teichu would teach such idiots. Jin Sohyun sneered and shook his head disdainfully. Many members of the royal family shook their heads and sneered. They were gloating over Chen Xiaobei's misfortune. Kong Teichu, aren't you going to ask them to come back? Lady Wu was the only one who looked worried. She stomped her foot and said, if we wait any longer we will all be killed. Don't worry. They are the ones who will be killed. Jiang Tian's expression was calm and unhurried. You are too arrogant. Lady Wu, who had always supported and respected Jiang Tian, could not stand Jiang Tian. She was very disappointed in him. Chen Xiaobei had an earth-level deity, but the other side had 2 half-step sacred venerables. And they had even used the divine spell to summon the true god spirit. Now they were in a passive position. They were like turtles in a jar, surrounded and attacked. However, as their master and sect master, Jiang Tian actually stood by and watched as their disciples died. Such a harsh and merciless person truly caused her to be extremely disappointed in Jiang Tian. Swoosh! Swoosh! Yi Tianren and the others entered the gourd cave. Saint Laurent, the little guru of suffering, and the others followed closely behind. Heretics, come out on your knees. Kneel before the Pope and repent for 10 years, and I will spare your lives. Blasphemers without faith, this time, we the crusade, will let you know who the #1 orthodoxy is. The Brahmin will crush you bunch of Wuxia people into pieces, and turn you into puppets. They stood guard at the strategic location, searching and pushing forward. They shouted loudly as if Yi Tianren and the others were lambs waiting to be slaughtered. Everyone, you will all die here today. With a soft shout, Celestial Yi and the others suddenly reappeared. At this moment he was no longer panicking. He was confident that victory was in his hands, and he was proud that he had lured the enemies into a trap. Yi Tianren, little worm, don't be stubborn. Do you know that I am the spirit of a true god? Now that I have descended to the mortal world, killing you will be as easy as killing a chicken. St. Paul's vertical eye flickered as he spoke coldly. However, the voice did not belong to him. It was an unfamiliar voice. Surrender. I know that your master Kong Techu is outside. If you surrender, I will not kill you. I will kill Kong Techu immediately, and you will lead Tianqing School in the future. How about that? Of course, Tianqing School will change its name. It will be called Tianqing Monastery. The voice was sonorous and majestic, like thunder from the ninth heaven. It was so loud that it made people's eardrums feel like they were about to burst. Their minds were spinning. Even the little guru of suffering could not withstand it. He was on the verge of collapse. At this moment, the spirit of a true God descended upon St. Paul. He was like the sun in the sky, emitting boundless holy light. The people around him could not help but want to kneel down. The little guru of suffering's eyes were cold. He thought quickly and summoned his spirit. It was clear that the true God of the Holy Sea's holy tomb had awakened. However, the true God of the Brahmin's death hill was not awakened. After killing Kong Techu and crushing Tianqing School, the Holy See and the Brahmin would have to fight. When that time came, the Brahmin would be under pressure. Ready. Suddenly, Yi Tianren gave an order. A few members of the Sky Troop tore off the camouflage cloth on a military truck, revealing a 5-meter-long black weapon that looked like a lotus flower. The medium-sized Kuelian was revealed today. Chapter 1003. A dozen elites of the Heavenly Army, who had been trained by the Sidonia Academy of Sciences, the Artifact Refining Hall and the Kuelian Research Center, controlled the devices and shouted, "Furnace check normal. No cracks. Explosive crystals check normal. Normal combustion. Array check normal. No cracks. Foundation check normal. Cannon check normal." Voices sounded one after another as they reported to Yi Tianren. The medium-sized Kuelian wasn't as intimidating as the giant Kuelian. Instead, it was delicate and beautiful. It didn't look like a weapon, but an exquisite piece of art. As the Kuelian operated, the metal petals opened and revealed the honeycomb-like stamen. What's that? Cannons? Or missiles? The leaders of the Crusaders laughed sinisterly. Their eyes were filled with mockery as if Heavenly Yi was a bunch of idiots. They were determined to win this battle. Saint Laurent was a bishop in the Privy Council who could summon the spirits of true gods. When a true god awakened, he would have at least 1/10 of the power of a true god. Not to mention Yi Tianren, cannons and missiles, even Kong Techu and nuclear weapons might not be able to kill him. You've run out of tricks. You want to kill us with firearms? Don't you know we're all saints and sacred kings? You can't kill us unless you're a nuclear weapon. The disciples of the Brahmins also had mocking expressions on their faces. They approached slowly and mockingly, as if they were looking at a mouse struggling under the claws of a cat. Number 1 Kuelian Alchemy Furnace Normal. Firing at full power. Ready to fire. Please give your instructions. Number 2 Kuelian Alchemy Furnace Normal. Fire check. Number 3 Alchemy Furnace Normal. Firing at full power. Ready to fire. The members of the Heavenly Army roared. Their eyes were murderous, as if they were war generals ready to slaughter gods. Today, I'll kill gods for the world to see. Yi Tianren sneered and waved his right hand. Fire. Immediately, the pill furnaces were all fired up, and the runes on their bases lit up. All the arrays were activated, and the violent energy from the exploding crystals surged. The massive cannon slowly rose into the air like a flower from hell. It aimed its stamen at the invaders, and a terrifying might burst forth, causing the space around it to warp and blur. Roar. It was as if 10,000 ghosts were howling and beasts were roaring. Beams of light tore through the sky, and the sky above the gourd cave shook violently, as if it was about to split open. The sky splitters whizzed out of the stamen and shot toward the crusade, and the Brahmin divine army. In the 1950s, when the Holy See and the U.S. military were fighting in the Mediterranean Sea, I once took a Patriot missile head-on. What was this small cannonball to him? Are you going to tickle me? A saint-level general of the crusade sneered and rose into the air. He was tall and mighty, but his speed was extremely fast. He quickly rose to 3 times the speed of sound, and threw a punch at a sky splitter. Bang! After a muffled sound, The general turned into a cloud of blood and disappeared in the blink of an eye. What? Kids, run. Saint Roland's eyelids twitched and he exclaimed, reminding everyone to retreat. At the same time, the vertical eye shot out beams of dazzling holy light toward the heaven splitter heavy cannons. But it was too late. On the sky splitter hammer heavy cannon, runes flickered, and countless exploding crystals exploded under the effect of the array. It was as if a few suns had exploded in the sky, and the roar was earth-shattering. The violent lightning and pressure melted all the rocks in the valley within a 10-mile radius into magma, and the trees were instantly carbonized. Terrifying cracks appeared on the ground, and scorched earth was everywhere. Bolts of lightning that were as thick as an arm or even a thigh covered an area of 5 to 6 kilometers and exploded in all directions, crushing and shattering the void. Bang, bang, bang. The overlords exploded one after another under the great pressure, and turned into a rain of flesh. The next moment, they were burned into ashes by the high temperature and lightning. Some of them turned into charcoal and exploded, instantly disappearing on the spot. Not even a trace of them was left. How is this possible? The little guru of suffering stepped in the air, and retreated out of the valley as fast as a flash of light. He screamed as if he had seen a demon. Even though he was moving at 3 times the speed of sound, he was still affected by the shock waves. His linen clothes were burnt to shreds, and his skin and flesh were torn apart. His body was charred black, and he kept coughing out blood. His internal organs were also shattered. The entire army was annihilated. There were 1,000 private soldiers of the Brahmin, all of whom were overlords above the immortal state, and a few guardians at the mortal deity level. They were all killed without even having the chance to scream. We were set up by Kong Techu. Those bastards are really insidious. The deity possessed by Saint Laurent was so angry that he almost vomited blood. He wanted to tear Jiang Tian into pieces and burn his bones into ashes. The Crusaders and the 6 monasteries of the Holy See were also completely annihilated. Not a single one of them was left. This was the biggest loss the Holy See had suffered in the past 2,000 years. The deity possessed by Saint Laurent was heartbroken and his heart was bleeding. Despicable. Cough, cough, cough. Master Suffering looked at Jiang Tian and spat out blood as he cursed. Kong Techu, you're shameless. We've said that this is a battle between orthodoxies. We won't use firearms. How could you use modern weapons? You have an unfair advantage. You. Yi Tianren had already set up an ambush. The previous defeat was just a bait to lure the enemy in? What kind of weapon is that? The people of the reclusive royalty were dumbfounded. The crusade was annihilated. The 6 great monasteries were also annihilated. The Brahmin's private army was also annihilated. Only the 2 leaders of the army were left? What kind of weapon is that? Even a nuclear explosion wouldn't be as powerful as this. This is too terrifying. Thinking of this, everyone's scalp tingled, and their hearts almost exploded. If it was used to deal with Wuxia's reclusive royalty, we would have been annihilated. Zhu Shaoqian was covered in cold sweat and his face turned pale. So he was luring the enemy in. Lady Wu finally understood. Her eyes glittered as she looked at Jiang Tian in a new light. Not only was Jiang Tian powerful, but his cultivation was also deep. He was also very smart. Amazing. You have an unfair advantage? Jiang Tian looked at Saint Laurent and the Guru of Suffering and smiled. This is a Dharma artifact. Your alms bowls and crosses are Dharma artifacts. Mine is also a Dharma artifact. If you can use it, why can't I? You must have never seen such a powerful Dharma artifact, right? Well, the spirit possessed by Saint Laurent and the little Guru of Suffering were dumbfounded. Heavenly beings, take him down. Jiang Tian's face was calm. Boom. As soon as Jiang Tian finished speaking, 2 more sky splitters were fired. Sect Master Jiang, please show mercy. I'm willing. The little Guru of Suffering quickly retreated and begged. But it was too late. One of the sky splitters had already exploded. He didn't even last for a second before he was completely vaporized and disappeared from the world. Kong Techu, you're so fierce and evil. You're indeed an unparalleled demon. When I arrive in my true form, I'll tear you to pieces. The deity possessed by Saint Roland was scared out of his wits. He had been prepared for this, so he roared and turned into a beam of light. He traveled 10 kilometers in one step, surpassing 10 times the speed of sound, and pierced into the distant sky. But the sky splitters were Mach 12. They caught up with him in a blink and let out thousands of thunderbolts. Boom! As if a supernova had exploded, St. Roland blossomed with holy light, illuminating everything within a radius of 30 miles. Every blade of grass, every tree, every mountain, and every rock in the surroundings were enveloped in a layer of holy and dazzling halo, revealing every detail. But the sacred light still couldn't stop the violent attack of the sky splitters. St. Lawrence's body was vaporized in a blink. Not even a trace of him was left. A true God descends and glorifies your body. Your body is eternal. Bah! Yi Tianren laughed heartily. Suddenly his expression changed. That spirit isn't dead yet. He's not dead yet. Everyone looked over in shock. The shadow of a spirit escaped from the endless sea of lightning and the violent energy turbulence, and rose a few thousand meters into the sky. Kong Teichu, you can't kill me. He had 10-meter-long wings of light. There was a divine disk behind his head and an evil vertical eye in the middle of his forehead. His body was surrounded by a purer power of light. He roared to the sky and was about to fly away. Is that the spirit of a true God? He can resist the sea of lightning. How terrifying! Ing Su, Lady Wu, Zhu Shaochen, Li Guangkol and the others were shocked and couldn't believe it. The so-called spirit of a true God also belonged to the category of soul energy. The soul energy of ghosts, Li Pa and primordial spirit were all tangible but immaterial. They were extremely weak and would be destroyed by the wind or the sun. But this spirit of a true God was able to break through the lightning cannon fire within a few thousand meters. It was extremely powerful and terrifying. Just a divine soul avatar was already this powerful. Who knew how terrifying and powerful this true God's main body, Saint Adam, was? But at least they could conclude that if their reclusive royalty went up against him, they would be killed in a matter of minutes. They wouldn't even have the strength to challenge him. Haha! You're indeed a member of the light sacred clan from the depths of the universe. Jiang Tian sneered. But you're still too weak. You can't resist the sky splitters. Jiang Tian's eyes suddenly became cold. He grunted and said, Heavenly being, I don't think he's smooth enough. Try again. Chapter 1004. Yes, sir. Yi Tianren gave the order. Another sky splitter was shot over. Dazzling thunderbolts burst out, making people cry and their eyes hurt. The thunderbolts enveloped the true God hero spirit like a giant net that covered the sky. Ow, ow, ow. Kong Teichu, you damaged my divine soul. I won't let you go. I'll tear you into pieces. The true God hero spirit dashed left and right, twisting and turning into a ray of light that pierced through heaven and earth. Suddenly, it rolled like a fireball. But in the end, the thunderbolts were annihilated. All the divine souls were torn into pieces by the thunderbolts and completely disappeared. A touch of blue appeared in the sky. Everything was over. The whole place was dead silent. All the members of the reclusive royalty and the dragon protection sect felt their blood freeze. They were dumbfounded and speechless. The crusade, the 6 great monasteries, and the disciples of the Brahmin, who had wreaked havoc on the Lansong River battlefield for many days and defeated the reclusive royalty, a total of 3,000 people, were annihilated just like that. And one of them was the clone of a true God. Were all these made by Kong Teichu? Lady Wu was also shocked. She looked at Jiang Tian's back in disbelief as if she had seen a true God. Originally, she had always thought highly of Jiang Tian, because she knew that Jiang Tian was powerful and had astonishing talent. But now she knew that she had seriously underestimated Jiang Tian. Not only was Jiang Tian's cultivation high, but his refining ability was also extraordinary. This was a weapon that could kill a true God. In fact, when she heard that Jiang Tian refused to cooperate with the reclusive royalty, she also thought that Jiang Tian was too arrogant and underestimating the enemy. But now she realized that they were really meddling in other people's business. Jiang Tian and the Tianqing school definitely had the strength to deal with the Holy See and the Brahmin. At this time, Jiang Tian slowly turned around and glanced at the reclusive royalty coldly. Plop! Jin Sohyun and Nalan Li couldn't take it anymore. They knelt on the ground and kowtowed like chickens pecking at rice. They kept quiet out of fear, and didn't even dare to look into Jiang Tian's eyes. They were afraid that if they did, the heaven splitter would blow them away from this world. Jiang Tian had even wiped out the crusade, and even the clone of a true god had been destroyed. What else could he not kill? Pa! Jiang Tian raised his hand and pulled Jin Sohyun over. He slapped Jin Sohyun's face and said coldly, "Did you just ask me to apologize to you?" Roar! Jin Sohyun screamed miserably as he was sent flying dozens of meters away by Jiang Tian. His face, which had just healed, exploded once again. Flesh and blood splattered everywhere, and teeth flew out, revealing his white cheekbones. Jiang Tian grabbed him again and grabbed his throat. He sneered and said, "I'm a commoner? Say something else. Kong Taechu, how dare you let go of me? My Aizenjoro family is under the command of the heavens. We have the stellar sky domain as our backer." Jin Sohyun threatened. "Haha, you're about to die, and you still dare to threaten me." Jiang Tian laughed as he exerted force in his hand. "Master Kong, I was wrong. You are the true dragon, the son of heaven. I'm a commoner. Give me a chance. Let me go this once." Jin Sohyun had difficulty breathing. When he saw Jiang Tian's fierce gaze, he was really scared this time. He begged for mercy pitifully. "Let you go this once? Didn't I give you a chance back in Wu Town?" Jiang Tian laughed and was about to kill him. He's really going to kill Jin Sohyun. Everyone shuddered. Their eyes were filled with fear as if they had seen a demon. Zhu Shaochen, Li Guangkol, and the others were so scared that they stumbled backward. They were afraid that Jiang Tian would capture them. He's decisive and resolute. There's no hesitation at all. This is a real man. I'm afraid that the reclusive royalty will be subdued by him today and obey his orders. Lady Wu's beautiful eyes were filled with respect. She was so excited that her full chest was heaving up and down. Kong Taechu. Only Ingsu's expression changed. He took a step forward and pointed his halberd at Jiang Tian. "You're too arrogant. How dare you kill someone from the reclusive royalty? How dare you ignore me? Where do you think I am?" Ingsu was the chief of the Reclusive Royalty Alliance. Many members of the Reclusive Royalty listened to him. Now that Jiang Tian had killed Jin Sohyun, it was a slap in the face. Clang! Jiang Tian smashed Jin Sohyun to the ground. Instantly, his flesh was torn and blood flowed out. "Ingsu, so what if I ignore you?" He stretched out his hand and slammed it down heavily, covering the sky and covering the sun. Clang! Ingsu couldn't take it at all, and was slapped to the ground. He knelt on the ground and roared at the sky. "Kong Taechu, how dare you attack me? So what if I attack you? So what if I kill you?" Jiang Tian looked at him disdainfully and sent him flying with a slap. "Kong Taechu, are you targeting me?" Ingsu rolled on the ground and roared. His eyes were red. He was the descendant of Qin Shi Huang. He had a noble bloodline, and was also the chief of the Royal Alliance. He was supreme and no one dared to challenge him. His cultivation was strong and his talent was amazing. Now that he was slapped by Jiang Tian, he couldn't take this kind of humiliation. The others were silent and didn't dare to make a sound. Ingsu was being trampled on by Jiang Tian, as if Tyson was beating up a 3-year-old child. "What right do you have to be targeted by me?" Jiang Tian stepped on his chest and sneered. "Don't you understand why I hit you?" "I don't." Ingsu's eyes were full of resentment. He gritted his teeth and shouted angrily, "I'm fighting for Wuxia. What right do you have to humiliate me like this? Fellow Taoist Grand Primordium, let him go. He's also here to defend against the invasion of the Holy See and the Brahmin." The martial demon lady was pleading for mercy. "Yeah. After all, Ingsu helped you before." Although no one dared to speak and some even trembled in fear, they were still a little angry in their hearts. No matter what, they were here to defend against the invasion and help Tianqing School. "Do I need your help?" Jiang Tian's eyes were cold and he shouted coldly. "Do you think your reclusive royalty is very powerful? How many people have you killed? How many have I killed?" As soon as these words came out, everyone's faces were filled with embarrassment. Jiang Tian was telling the truth. In this battle, Jiang Taichu had killed 3,000 experts. While they had fought bitterly for the past few days, yet they had only killed a few dozen people, which was not even a fraction of the total. How could they compare to Jiang Taichu? The entire reclusive royalty was not as good as Tianqing schools, nor was it as good as the massacre just now. We didn't make any contributions, but we did work hard. Lady Wu held back her embarrassment and defended herself weakly. Contributions? What contributions do you have? Jiang Tian scolded him to his face. Originally, Tianqing school brought the Coelian back to China to lure the enemy in and catch the turtle in a jar. Tianqing school and the Long Formation school showed weakness time and time again in order to lure them in. However, every time they were about to succeed, they were interrupted by you. You didn't listen to orders and fought on your own, affecting our plan. What contributions do you have? As soon as these words came out, Ingsu felt as if he had been struck by lightning. His body trembled, and his face turned red with shame. Everyone's faces were full of shame, and they were speechless. Indeed, on the battlefield, they had never listened to Yi Tianren's orders and deployments. They had acted alone time and time again, and even mocked Tianqing school for being weak in Jiang Tian's incompetent teaching. But now they understood that the Tianqing school and the Long Formation school's defeat was deliberately staged. As soon as the Sky Splitter was used, 3,000 powerhouses were killed immediately. The martial demon Yang was immediately embarrassed. Everyone's face turned red, as if blood was about to drip out. Do you know how many people died in Tianqing school because you didn't listen to advice? How many national elites sacrificed in the Long Formation school? How many reclusive royalty school lost because of you? Even if it wasn't 100, it was at least 80. Jiang Tian shouted sternly. Ingsu was actually trembling from Jiang Tian's scolding. Everyone's faces also turned pale, and they trembled. At this time, a strong sense of regret surged up to the top of their heads. Their hearts were full of regret. Jiang Tian's announcement was issued a few days ago, and his attitude was very clear and firm. But at that time, they thought that Jiang Tian was ungrateful and stubborn. They even thought that Jiang Tian wanted to compete with them for merits and benefits. If they had listened to Jiang Tian, perhaps these sacrifices would have been completely unnecessary. Jiang Tian said with a dignified look. Didn't I ask Jin Sohyun to inform you before? Didn't I say before? Do you think my words are nonsense? You've disrupted my plans time and time again. Do you want me to thank you? Ingsu, you're the commander of the reclusive royalty school, aren't you? Jiang Tian looked down at Ingsu and shouted. That's right, it's me. Ingsu straightened his neck and shouted. Smack. Jiang Tian slapped him in the face and sent him flying. He shouted angrily. Back then, your ancestors swept through the 6 countries and unified Wuxia. They were good at commanding troops, but you don't even know basic military knowledge. This is not a game. This is a battlefield. We are the main army. Don't you understand? I'm not your subordinate. I'm the supreme royal family. Why should I listen to you? Ingsu struggled to get up, waved his halberd and shouted angrily. From today onwards, I, the reclusive royalty school, declare war on you, Kong Taichu. Chapter 1005. All of a sudden, there was a dead silence. Everyone was shocked. Ingsu's declaration of war between the royal family and Tianqing school was no small matter. After all, he was the leader of the alliance and could represent the entire reclusive royalty. Reclusive royalty was not limited to those present. There were still some powerhouses and seniors who had not come out yet. Once the two sides started the war, the whole of Wuxia would be turned upside down, and even the whole world would be in chaos. Kong Taichu, Ingsu, can't you both take a step back? Lady Wu's face was solemn. She was in a dilemma. She stopped Ingsu and tried to persuade him. Isn't this making your friends suffer and your enemies happy? Besides, can you withstand Jiang Tian's Coelian Dharma artifact? Zhu Xiaochen, Li Kuangkol, and the others were tense, ready to fight Jiang Tian at any time. Jin Sohyun, Nalan Li, and the others rolled their eyes and thought to themselves. Good. They are finally going to fight. At least I have a chance to escape. Maybe Kong Taichu will even die an unnatural death. Go away. Reclusive royalty is not to be humiliated. Kang Taechu, I'd like to see how strong you are today. Ingsu roared and pushed Lady Wu away. His halberd flew across the sky and pierced toward Jiang Tian. You're too weak. Reclusive royalty is not to be humiliated? I'll humiliate you then. Jiang Tian's eyes were full of contempt. He flicked his finger, and the light from his finger hit the halberd. Suddenly, the halberd exploded and shattered into pieces. Ingsu flew back dozens of meters, blood spurting out of his mouth. His armor was broken. Everyone was deeply shocked again. Jiang Tian was too strong. He defeated Ingsu with one finger, and even shattered the Ying family's ancestral Dharma artifact. You're so strong. Ingsu could not believe it. His eyes were filled with shock. However, he immediately roared and rushed towards Jiang Tian. But, I refuse to accept this. I will kill you. Ingsu, stop. At this moment, a dignified shout was heard. A streak of black light tore through the air like a comet, traversing a distance of more than 10 kilometers in the blink of an eye and landing on the Deer Peak not far away. This person's aura burst forth, spanning across a distance of several thousand meters, pressing down on Ingsu's chest, subduing him. Only then did the crowd clearly see that it was actually an old man wearing a black robe and holding a walking stick. This old man had the skin of a chicken and the head of a crane. His teeth were missing, and his mouth was shriveled. His back was hunched, and he was leaning on a dragon-headed walking stick. It can't be him, right? Everyone suddenly thought of a person, and they couldn't help but feel their scalps go numb, and their hearts almost exploded. It's Ying Laozu. Even Yi Tianren, who had just walked out of the gourd cave, tensed up, and his heart almost jumped out of his throat. Ying Laozu was the oldest person in the Ying family. No one knew how long his lifespan was. He was a living fossil, and his strength was unfathomable. Reclusive royalty owners had to listen to his orders, and no one dared to disobey him. When Yi Tianren was in Hongmeng, several ancestral patriarchs in Hongmeng had a whole new level of respect for him, and they treated him with caution. One should know that the ancestral patriarchs in Hongmeng were all celestial immortals, and some of them had even surpassed celestial immortals. Even the Kunlun sect master during the Republic of China had to be courteous when Ying Laozu was mentioned, and they did not dare to provoke him. Yi Tianren had even visited the Ying family in Tongguan and received guidance from them several times. Ying Laozu's strength and cultivation were not to be underestimated. He could be considered Yi Tianren Sr. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. Another two figures flashed through the sky and descended on Deer Peak, and they stood behind Ying Laozu. One of them was an old man in a bright yellow robe with a large braid hanging behind his head. Behind him, there was a beautiful girl with an uneasy expression on her face. Shockingly, she was Jin Yuran, a descendant of the Aizenjoro family that Jiang Tian had met in Skypass Valley. The old man was the Jin family's patriarch, Jin Sohyun's father, Jin Wanxiong. He had a solemn bearing, a gaze that was like lightning, and an aura that was as deep as the sea. Shockingly, he was an earthly immortal expert. Subsequently, royal chi surged in the sky, and auspicious light gushed out while a golden aura suffused the air. Numerous experts tore through the sky and arrived. Practically all the patriarchs of the various imperial families in Wuxia, including the Zhu family's patriarch, Zhu Guanlan, and the Li family's patriarch, Li Fanyu, had arrived. Nailan Bo was amongst them as well. There were even a few patriarchs and ancestor-level figures of the older generation that came out to hold down the fort. All of them possessed formidable strengths and respected statuses, and their cultivations were practically at the earthly immortal realm. Juniors like Ingsu couldn't compare to them at all. In terms of seniority and strength, a few of these experts were even able to crush Yi Tianren. This is Kang Taechu. He's actually so young. At this moment, they looked at Jiang Tian with complicated expressions, and they were filled with doubt, bewilderment, shock, fear, hostility, probing. There were more or less all of these. Looks like Jin Sohyun and Ingsu have already gotten into an argument with Kang Taechu. This is going to be troublesome. Kang Taechu might have already defeated the Stellar Sky domain. With such strength, how can our small Jin family afford to provoke him? On Deer Peak, Jin Luanxiong's heart was in a mess. His eyes were filled with panic, and he was trembling. He looked at Nalan Bo, cupped his fists and said earnestly, "Brother Nalan, please go and meet Kong Taechu first and tell him that we are not targeting him. We have no hostility. Everyone please calm down. Don't go over rashly, lest Kong Taechu misunderstands. Otherwise, we will all be in trouble. And Nalan Bo, go quickly. If a fight breaks out, it will be a disaster." Many of the reclusive royalty seniors had fear in their eyes, and they urged him anxiously. If it was really as everyone had speculated, in Wuxia, and even in the entire world, who could be Kong Taechu's opponent? Even Yingying Laozu would find it difficult to deal with him. Only Yingying Laozu's eyes shone brightly. His face was gloomy, and he did not say a word. No one knew what he was thinking, but he did not stop them. Yes. Seeing that Yingying Laozu did not stop them, Nalan Bo responded with a serious expression. He stepped into the air and flew towards Qingsong Peak where Jiang Tian and the others were. On Qingsong Peak, Lady Wu saw the arrival of the seniors from the royal family, and her heart tightened. She frowned and said softly, "Are they here to deal with Kong Taechu? We are doomed this time." Even a living fossil like Yingying Laozu has come. Let's see how long Kong Taechu can remain stubborn. This time, the reclusive royalty has come in full force. "Kong Taechu, I don't believe that you can continue to be stubborn. You dared to attacking Su, you are in big trouble. I'm afraid that you will be crushed to pieces." Zhu Shaochen, Li Guangkol, Jin Sohyun, and the others suddenly became bold and fearless. They laughed gloomily, as if Jiang Tian was already a dead man. Yes, Jiang Tian's Coelian was very powerful. They were afraid of Jiang Tian, and did not dare to provoke him. However, now that even Yingying Laozu had come, everything was different. The reclusive royalty had greatly increased their chances of winning. These people were all scheming people. Although they were full of hostility towards Jiang Tian, they did not show it. They only looked down on Jiang Tian in their hearts. "Jiang Tian, now you know the power of the reclusive royalty, don't you? I don't know who gave you the confidence and courage to challenge the reclusive royalty." But Nalan Qinghe, whose face had turned deathly white from fright, wasn't so restrained. She instantly came back to life and jumped out, her face full of ridicule. Jiang Tian was too lazy to pay attention to her. He shook his head disdainfully. "Are you not going to surrender now? Are you not going to repent? You just wanted to kill Jin Sohyun and Ying Su." Nalan Qinghe taunted without knowing the difference between life and death. "Qinghe, don't talk so much." Nalan Bo quickly flew over and tried to dissuade her. Then he looked at Jiang Tian apologetically and bowed deeply. "Jiang Tian, I'm sorry, I'm really sorry. I didn't teach my son well. Yingying Laozu wants to see you." I don't know. He did not expect the relationship between Jiang Tian and the family to be like this. Everyone of the Nalan family, on the night of the banquet, I said that I have been to the Stellar Sky Domain, killed hundreds of immortals, and became the ruler of the Stellar Sky Domain. I will give you 10 lives of glory and bring you to the dimensional world to become immortals and gods. Jiang Tian glanced at Nalan Qinghe and said lightly, "If you apologize to me now and keep that secret, I will give you another chance for the sake of the old man. What I said before still counts." "Haha, you are still so stubborn even when you are about to die. Kong Taechu, in terms of cultivation strength, you may not be the best in the world, but in terms of bragging, you are definitely the best. I am sincerely convinced." Nalan Li could not hold back his crazy laughter. He laughed like a pig. In fact, many people were laughing mockingly at this moment. "Kong Taechu, are you crazy? You have been to the Stellar Sky Domain, killed hundreds of immortals, and became the ruler of the Stellar Sky Domain? How is that possible? This is like a basketball enthusiast who can't even make a 3-step layup saying that he beat Kobe Bryant and Jordan last night. This is the biggest joke in the world. Kong Taechu, are you kidding? You said that you have been to the Heavenly Star Small World and obtained some bullshit Emperor's token." Nalan Qinghe moved lightly and approached Jiang Tian. She sneered proudly and said sarcastically, "Let me tell you, the Jin family and the Imperial Li family are the representatives of the Heavenly Star Small World. As the descendant of the Dragon Protector, I will meet the immortals of the Stellar Sky Domain in the future and even receive their blessings. In the future, the Nalan family will be an existence that you will not be able to reach. She looked down at Jiang Tian as if she was looking at an ant and mocked him as much as she could. Before this, you have no respect for your elders and offended the Nalan family time and time again. You even fought and humiliated us. Now you want us to keep your secret? Dream on. We will announce it to the world immediately. Now, reclusive royalty experts have gathered to deal with you. I wonder if you regret it. Are you scared? Don't tremble. Chapter 1006. Clan Head Jin. Hurry up and kill Kong Taechu. Kong Taechu wanted to kill Jin Sohyun just now. He wanted to kill Ing Su just now. How can the Ing family just stand by and do nothing? Ing Laozu do it. Nalan Li, Nalan Tu. And the rest were like loyal dogs that had seen their masters. They rushed up and shouted at Jin Luanxiong and Ing Laozu, adding fuel to the fire. Jiang Tian smiled faintly and said, "How can you be so confident that Ing Laozu is here to deal with me? How can you be so sure that I didn't take down the star dimension? In my opinion, they might be here to acknowledge me as their master. They are just my dogs." In fact, when he saw Jin Yuran appear, Jiang Tian guessed that the reclusive royalty had already analyzed that he had been to the stellar sky domain. They were here to apologize and acknowledge him as their master. "Kong Taechu, how dare you?" The moment he said that, Li Kuangkol, Zhu Shaochen, Jin Sohyun, and the rest could no longer sit still. They all shouted and scolded him. Even Lady Wu shook her head helplessly and sighed. "Kong Taechu, how can you be so arrogant? How can you be so ignorant of the situation? Can't you see what's going on? Even Ing Laozu is here." Seeing that Nalan Qinghe had become the target of many experts of the reclusive royal family, Nalan Qinghe instantly became more confident. She was arrogant and despotic to the extreme. Nalan Bo couldn't stop her no matter how hard he tried. She shook off Nalan Bo's pull and strode forward. She pointed at Jiang Tian's nose and said in a mocking voice, "Kong Taechu, how dare you attempt to kill Jin Sohyun and Ing Su? How dare you challenge the authority of the reclusive royalty? Now you, Kong Taechu, are the enemy of the entire Wuxia reclusive royalty. You've brought disaster to the world, and everyone has the right to punish you. No matter how strong Kong Taechu is, are you a match for Ing Laozu, reclusive royalty, and all the experts of the Dragon Guardian clan? If you have the guts, then let's fight." This woman was truly murderous. Originally, Jiang Tian only wanted to kill Jin Sohyun, who was trying to snatch Sidoni's dojo. He also wanted to teach Ing Su a lesson. But when she talked about it, Jiang Tian became a villain who killed people without batting an eyelid. When Jiang Tian saw this, he couldn't help but shake his head and sigh. He sneered, "Alas, I've given you the last chance. I didn't expect. Well, this is good. In the future, no one will say that I, Kong Taechu, am an ungrateful person." Jiang Tian was a righteous person. In the celestial realm, he had once helped that family become the emperor of a secular country with a bowl of porridge. They enjoyed 3,000 years of glory and glory. This time, he had done everything he could for the Nalan family. At the last moment, he still gave the Nalan family a chance. Kong Taechu, the reclusive royalty has come out in full force. Why don't you surrender? Give up Sidoni's dojo, and I'll spare your life. Otherwise, when the ancestors of the dimensional world descend in the future, killing you will be as easy as killing a chicken. That's right, Kong Taechu. A wise man submits to circumstances. You killed an important person in the stellar sky domain. Your crime is unforgivable, and you will definitely die. But if you give up your dojo, we can still help you to make peace. Zhu Shaochen, Li Kuangkol, and the rest of the younger generation of the royal family's descendants. Some threatened, some persuaded, and some looked at Jiang Tian mockingly. Who else? Who else wants to take over my dojo? Stand out together. Jiang Tian said calmly and calmly. Kong Taechu, I don't accept this either. Give up Sidoni. At this time, another royal family's martial artist stood out. 2 fists are no match for 4 hands. Do you think you are a match for us? A family head of the Dragon Protector family also stood out and looked at Jiang Tian disdainfully, provoking him with words. Finally, on Qingsong Peak, except for Lady Wu. Almost all the royal family's members and the Dragon Protector family announced that they had broken ties with Kong Taechu. All of you shut up. Seeing this scene, Nalanbo was so anxious that the veins on his forehead were popping out. He said loudly, Ying Laozu and the others came to seek an audience with Jiang Tian. They don't have the slightest hostility. At this time he was very anxious. Originally, he wanted to make peace with them. However, these people from the hidden royal family were too arrogant. Before he could say anything, they had already attacked Jiang Tian, engaging in a battle of words. Nalanbo, what's the meaning of this? Hearing this, everyone was stunned and couldn't come back to their senses. Royal family's leaders, come over quickly. I can't hold it back anymore. Nalanbo was so anxious that he stomped his feet. Suddenly he shook his head and sighed, shouting loudly. Jin Yuran greets Master Kong. Please punish me, Master Kong. Hearing this, Jin Yuran was the first to rush over. When she got close, her eyes were filled with panic. She was so scared that she trembled and knelt on the ground. Jin Wanxiong, Ying Laozu, and the other powerhouses also rushed over. Originally, she had already submitted to Jiang Tian, but she didn't tell the Jin family about this. That was because she also knew that the Aizenjoro family was extremely arrogant and ambitious. If she had told them, the Aizenjoro family would probably have immediately become enemies with Kong Taechu and Tianqing School, and declared war on them. If that happened, the Aizenjoro family would have been doomed. Moreover, the royal family was ruthless and cold. If she angered the higher-ups, she might even be executed. Therefore, after Jin Yuran returned from Tongtian Valley, she chose to go into seclusion to improve her cultivation and gain the right to speak in the family. In her opinion, Heavenly Star Small World was too strong. After Jiang Tian went in, it would probably take a few years or even decades before he had any hope of defeating Star World. It was even possible that Jiang Tian would die an unnatural death. If Jiang Tian died, then her attitude would also change. She would no longer be on Jiang Tian's side. Therefore, to Jin Yuran, her best choice was to hide everything and make up a story. She didn't dare to tell the truth and just waited for things to become clearer. However, when she came out of seclusion, she immediately heard the news of Kong Taechu's return. Jin Yuran was almost scared to death. Kong Taechu actually came back alive. Could it be that he had defeated Star Dimension? That was too unbelievable. She immediately went to see the old family head, Jin Wanxiong, and Jin Wanxiong actually said that Jin Sohyun wanted to force Jiang Tian to hand over Sidoni. Jin Yuran was so scared that her heart almost exploded. Jin Sohyun was really courting death to a whole new level. After Jin Wanxiong heard Jin Yuran's story, he also realized the seriousness of the matter. If Jiang Tian really defeated Star Dimension, then Kong Taechu's strength would have to be re-evaluated. It was very likely that the entire reclusive royalty wouldn't be a match for him. Once they offended him, it would be a disaster. Therefore, Jin Wanxiong immediately contacted Ying Laozu and gathered the elders of the various royal families to go to Lansong River to find Jiang Tian and stop the situation from worsening. At this moment, both sides were at daggers drawn, like fire and water, and Jin Sohyun was beaten to a pulp by Jiang Tian. Jin Yuran and Jin Wanxiong were filled with regret. Even though they rushed over, they were still a step too late. Naran Qinghe didn't know about this. She even pulled Jin Yuran and shouted recklessly, Jin Yuran, are you crazy? Why are you kneeling to a commoner? He's just a commoner. What's so great about him? Now Ying Laozu, the old family head, and many other royal family leaders are here. Isn't killing him as easy as killing a chicken? Naran Qinghe, I beg you, shut up. Jin Yuran wanted nothing more than to sew her mouth shut. However, Naran Qinghe was so proud that she didn't listen. She turned to Jiang Tian and roared, Jiang Tian, to tell you the truth, the Jin family has been trying to kill you for a long time. This time, they've turned out in full force. Just you wait for your death. Bitch, shut your mouth. Jin Wanxiong was so angry that his entire body was trembling. He was furious and roared like thunder. He strode forward and slapped Nalan Qinghe's head. Kong Taechu was an existence that could crush Heavenly Star Small World. Aren't you pushing the Jin family into a fire pit? Don't you think that the Jin family hasn't had enough deaths? Do you want to completely exterminate the Jin family? Bang! Naranqinghe was only at the transcendent realm. How could she withstand the blow? She was sent flying, her head bleeding as she fell to the ground. Old family head, why are you doing this? Why did you hit my beloved daughter? We are loyal to the Nalan family. Nalanli was dumbfounded. His eyes were filled with tears. He was almost going crazy. He beat his chest and stomped his feet, waving his arms and legs like a mad tiger. Slap. Jin Wanxiong slapped Nalanli again, causing blood to spurt out of his nose. He was sent flying a few meters away like a rag doll. Why did I hit you? Jin Wanxiong kicked him in the chest and broke a few of his ribs. He shouted angrily, "You're so arrogant. Master Kong is not even afraid of Star World. He went to Stellar Sky Domain and returned safely. Yet, you're fanning the flames and instigating Jin Sohyun to become enemies with Master Kong. What are your intentions?" As soon as these words were spoken, everyone was shocked. What? He went to Stellar Sky Domain? And he came back? When everyone heard this, it was as if they were struck by lightning. Their faces were full of disbelief. Jin family head, what are you saying? He. Ingsu was dumbfounded. She stared at Jiang Tian dumbfoundedly, as if she had just met Jiang Tian. Chapter 1007. Nalanli was also stunned, as if he had been struck by lightning. His eyeballs almost popped out of their sockets. Zhu Shaoqian was so scared that his face turned pale. Cold sweat poured out of his forehead, and his whole body trembled as if he had seen a ghost. Jin Sohyun felt as if his soul had left his body. He was so scared that his legs turned to jelly. He wanted nothing more than to kneel down before Jiang Tian. This Kong Teichu is too strong. Lady Wu's eyes were wide open. Her face was full of worship, and her heart was beating wildly. Her breathing was rapid. She was like a little fangirl who had seen her idol. None of them were fools. After hearing Jin Yalan's words, they instantly understood what was going on. Jiang Tian had actually gone to the Stellar Sky Domain and returned safely. It was obvious what this meant. The person Jiang Tian had killed back then was not an ordinary person. He was the Dao disciple of the Stellar Sky Palace, Li Qingxian. There was no possibility of peace talks. There was only one possibility for Jiang Tian to return safely. He had won the Stellar Sky Domain. You are Jin Wanxiong? Jiang Tian's eyes were as cold as lightning. He looked at Jin Wanxiong and asked the obvious. When he met Jiang Tian's cold eyes, Jin Wanxiong was so scared that his legs turned to jelly. His face was ashen as he said in a trembling voice, reporting to Master Kong, "It is indeed this humble one." Jiang Tian had a faint smile on his face as he said mockingly, "How many good sons have you raised? They are all very promising. I killed Jin Zihan. Are you here to avenge him?" This old man does not dare. A trace of regret flashed in his eyes. However, he immediately gritted his teeth and said viciously, "This man offended Master Kong. He deserved to die. No, he should be cut into pieces and skinned alive." It was as if Jin Sohyun was not his son, but the enemy who had killed his father and clan. Reclusive royalty. Isn't that great? Jiang Tian looked at him with interest and said with a smile that was not a smile, "Your son Jin Sohyun dares to snatch my Kong Teichu's dojo. Is this your idea? An old man wouldn't dare." Jin Wanxiong could no longer take it. Plop. He knelt on the ground and curled up like a quail. "Master Kong, the old man and his family knew nothing about this child's actions. Please forgive us." Everyone's expression changed, and their hearts were filled with complicated feelings. Some were shocked. Jiang Tian had only said a few words, but he had actually forced a royal family leader to kneel and beg for mercy. Some were doubtful. Had Kong Teichu really gone to the star dimension, or was it just a rumor? Even more people felt the sorrow of a fox mourning the death of a rabbit, and their hearts were filled with sorrow. Reclusive royalty, what was the use of having a noble bloodline? In the end, he was still easily suppressed by Jiang Tian. In this world, strength was still the most important thing. Jiang Tian was just a commoner, but he was very powerful. It did not matter whether he had suppressed the stellar sky domain. At the very least, he was the invader who had slaughtered the Holy See and the Brahmin. With the peerless Tianqing school as his backing, no one dared to offend him easily. At this moment, Yingying Laozu suddenly cupped his fists and said bitterly, Kong Teichu, I heard that you went to the stellar sky domain. Do you have any evidence? Evidence. So what if I went there? What evidence do I need? Who do you think you are? Do I need to prove it to you? Jiang Tian flicked his sleeves and snorted disdainfully. Reclusive royalty, my ass. Jiang Tian did not care at all. If you are a dragon, you have to coil up. If you are a tiger, you have to lie down and obediently hide your fangs. If you dare to provoke me, I will just slaughter you. You. Being ignored by Jiang Tian, Yingying Laozu's old face turned red. He said coldly, Master Kang's cultivation is very powerful. If you have the human emperor's token, this old man will bow down to you. If not, this old man would like to learn a thing or two from you. Yingying Laozu, don't be impatient. Yi Tianren hurriedly shouted and flew over. He bowed and cupped his fists. Master, Yingying Laozu once gave me pointers on my cultivation. During the late Qing dynasty, he fought against the Western martial experts and protected Wuxia. Please forgive him. Then he said softly, Master, the enemy is right in front of us. There is no need to kill too many people. Moreover, he is very knowledgeable. He might really recognize the human emperor's token. You recognize the human emperor's token? Jiang Tian looked at Yingying Laozu in surprise. Then he smiled leisurely and took out the human emperor's token. Suddenly, a surging emperor's aura was released, making Jiang Tian look extremely sacred. He was as powerful as the 3 sovereigns and 5 emperors overlooking the world. Everyone felt the monstrous aura and spiritual fluctuation from the human emperor's token. They could not help but tremble. It's really the human emperor's token. Yingying Laozu's pupils suddenly shrank in shock. Oh my God, he has the human emperor's token. All the martial experts of the royal family and the dragon protectors looked at Jiang Tian in shock, fear, and unwillingness. They could no longer keep calm. The human emperor's token commanded the royal family of Wuxia and the dragon protectors. It was respected by the world, and was more important than the imperial jade seal. This was the contract between the reclusive royalty and many ancient Wuxia dimensional worlds. Otherwise, the reclusive royalty would be killed by the dimensional worlds. Who would dare to disobey? Is this given to you by the Stellar Sky Palace Lord? Yingying Laozu was old and had a fiery temper. He quickly calmed down and said with a cold gaze, Don't think that the old man will be afraid of you just because you have the human emperor's token. The old man is not even afraid of Li Longyuan. This old man's cultivation has already surpassed the heaven immortal realm. If not for the fact that the Ying family needed this old man's protection, I would have gone to the Stellar Sky domain long ago and asked that old man, Li Longyuan, to teach me a lesson. Most of the reclusive royalty were afraid of the Stellar Sky domain and the dimensional worlds. However, Yingying Laozu was not afraid. He even hated the multidimensional worlds to the bone. After all, their ancestors had been killed by one of the multidimensional worlds. Surpassed the heaven immortal level? Yi Tianren did not know whether to laugh or cry. He shook his head and said, Old ancestor, your strength is only equivalent to the 4th stage foundation establishment. A trace of faintly discernible pride appeared on his face as he shared the honor. He said, Do you know that Master Kong once killed 600 exalted immortals in the Stellar Sky domain? Those were late-stage foundation establishment experts. Once this was said, the whole place was dead silent. The huge green pine peak was so silent that one could hear a pin drop. What? Master Kong can actually kill exalted immortals. 600 exalted immortals. After a full 5 seconds, everyone seemed to have woken up from a dream. They all sucked in a breath of cold air. Their eyes were filled with shock as if they had seen a ghost. Reclusive royalty had a deeper understanding of the Stellar Sky domain than Yi Tianren. After all, many of their ancestors were agents of the dimensional worlds like the Stellar Sky domain. They were puppets supported by them. They knew that the Stellar Sky domain was an immortal cultivation technique, which was completely different from martial arts techniques. The so-called exalted immortals were late-stage Foundation establishment. They had the ability to destroy cities and countries. If they were on Earth, they could wipe out everything. Even the armies of the 5 major countries combined would not be a match for them. One had to know that Jiang Tian, as an Earth immortal, had killed his way through the European Union and forced the Pentagon to submit to him. In their eyes, the stellar sky domain was high and mighty. The exalted immortals were like real gods. However, they were actually killed by Jiang Tian. He even killed 600 exalted immortals in one go. This was like a legend. It was shocking. Ignoring their shock, Yi Tianren said slowly with a hint of mockery. Yingying Laozu, Li Longyuan gave the human emperor's decree to my master? You are so wrong. How can he be qualified? What do you mean? Yingying Laozu was confused. Suddenly he thought of a possibility and said, You mean, how can this be? Haha, Yingying Laozu probably guessed it. That's right. Master Kong can even kill Golden Core experts. Li Longyuan has been killed by him. Yi Tianren was proud and proud. He straightened his back and showed his sharpness like an unsheathed sword. As soon as he said that, everyone present was shocked, and they looked at Jiang Tian flabbergasted. It was as if they'd seen an ancient fiend god, and they were filled with both shock and terror. Is this true? Even Yingying Laozu was shocked. His hands were trembling slightly. In the dimensional world, even Qin Shi Huang could not resist. Jiang Tian could actually crush them. Everyone was also in disbelief. Jiang Tian's cultivation was strong and his talent was amazing. It was possible for him to get the recognition of the heavenly star small world and get the human emperor's decree. However, Jiang Tian had killed the master of the heavenly star palace and 600 exalted immortals. This would probably shock the entire world. My master killed the path chosen of the Azure Mystic sect. That was Li Longyuan's son. Yi Tianren smiled slowly and said, The son of the Azure Mystic sect is dead. The hatred of his son's death is absolutely irreconcilable. If Grandmaster Jiang doesn't kill Li Longyuan, how can he get the human sovereign token? It seems that Yi Tianren is right. Kong Teichu really killed 600 deities. Zhu Guanlan, Li Guangyu, Jin Luanxiong, Lady Wu and the other leaders of the royal family were shocked and looked at Jiang Tian in disbelief. At this time, Jiang Tian had black hair and black eyes. He was wearing a white robe and his face was elegant. There was no murderous aura in him at all. More than that, Yi Tianren smiled leisurely. Master Kong suppressed the 4 major sects and 3 major cities of the Heavenly Star domain at the Green Hill Gathering. Thousands of sects submitted to him and were respected as the ruler of the Heavenly Star domain. He commanded the Heavenly Star domain and suppressed the entire domain. As soon as he said that, what? Like a stone that startled 1,000 waves, everyone exclaimed. Stormy waves were set off in their hearts, and they could no longer calm down. Then there was a dead silence. Everyone's eyes almost popped out. They stood there in a daze, motionless as if they were clay sculptures. One person suppressed an entire domain. Chapter 1008. The stellar sky domain had once controlled the change of dynasties and used the emperors as puppets and chess pieces to toy with the world. In the hearts of many royal families, it was like a supreme god that could not be shaken. Now it was suppressed by Jiang Tian with one hand. The stellar sky domain had billions of territories, and its area was equivalent to several Wuxia. Immortals were as common as rain, and experts were as common as clouds. They could destroy the Earth domain in a matter of minutes. Jiang Tian had already controlled the stellar sky domain, and was known as the ruler. Didn't this mean that Jiang Tian's influence had completely transcended this world? Thinking of this, everyone looked at Jiang Tian with reverence. It was as if they were looking at a supreme god that stepped on time, carried the sky, and controlled the stars and galaxies. An expert like Jiang Tian was simply like a myth or a legend. Not to mention the descendants of the imperial family. Even their ancestors who had made great achievements and opened up new territories were unable to shake him. Everyone was stunned. If Master Kong only had the human emperor's token, that old man might not submit. However, Master Kong suppressed the stellar sky domain. The old man is sincerely convinced. Suddenly, Ying Laozu's face turned solemn as he knelt on the ground. From now on, the Ying family is willing to serve Master Kong as our leader. If you have any orders, we will obey without question. Zhu Guanlan, the head of the Zhu family, a descendant of the Great Ming dynasty, was also shocked. He quickly knelt on the ground and said loudly, "From now on, the Zhu family is also willing to serve Master Kong as our leader. If you have any orders, we will obey without question." He was afraid that if he was one step late, Jiang Tian would kill him on the spot. The Li family is willing to serve Master Kong as our leader. The Wu family. One by one, the royal family leaders knelt. They were all the family heads of the older generation, and even the ancestors. Then it was Nailan Bo and the others. The family heads and leaders of the dragon protection lineage knelt as well. He actually suppressed the entire stellar sky domain. Oh my god. I'm done for. Jin Sohyun was so scared that he pissed his pants. His whole body twitched, and went limp on the ground like a puddle of mud. The corners of Zhu Xiaoqin's eyes twitched. He was dumbstruck. He was very arrogant. He didn't want to kneel, but when his father Zhu Guanlan gave him a murderous look, his knees went soft and he obediently knelt on the ground. Li Guangkol quickly knelt down after being glared at by Li Guangyu. "Ying Su, what are you waiting for? Kneel down." Finally, under Ying Laozu's rebuke, Ying Su, whose face was full of humiliation and unwillingness, turned from red to black, then from black to white. In the end, there was only desolation and despair left. He slowly lowered his head, bent his knees, knelt on the ground and kowtowed. "Master Kong, I was wrong." The entire Qingsong Peak was completely silent. Everyone stared at this scene with their mouths agape. Even the warriors of the Tianqing school and the Huaxiaolong formation were deeply shocked. Reclusive royalty and the dragon protection lineage were all kneeling on the ground. Only Jiang Tian was left standing with his hands clasped behind his back. He looked like a real god. At this time, Nailan Li and his two brothers, who were kneeling on the ground, felt a roar in their heads. A deep sense of regret rushed to the top of their heads. He regretted it so much that his intestines turned green. He couldn't wait to give himself a few tight slaps. It turned out that the stellar sky domain, which they worshipped like gods, had been shocked by Jiang Tian. It turned out that Jiang Tian had promised them a country, a city, a beautiful landscape, mountains of gold and silver, and wealth that would last for generations to come. It would help their cultivation advance by leaps and bounds, allowing them to become immortals and saints, and live eternally. All of this was true. Jiang Tian even took out the human emperor's token. Unfortunately, they were blind and short-sighted. They didn't recognize it at all. At this moment, Naran Qinghe finally understood everything. She was wrong, very wrong. She had always thought of herself as smart and intelligent. However, she had made a fool of herself when the imperial family and Jiang Tian were fighting for Sidoni's dojo. The existence that she had to look up to and the immortals who were regarded as gods were just ants that Jiang Tian could easily crush. She had always thought that Jiang Tian was just a commoner, who didn't have the qualifications to challenge the dragon protection lineage. At this time, she couldn't help but think of Jiang Tian's disdain for Jin Sohyun, and the entire reclusive royalty. She had thought that Jiang Tian was ignorant of the immensity of heaven and earth. Now she realized that she was a frog at the bottom of a well. She had eyes but failed to see the real face of a real dragon. He could suppress the stellar sky domain and crush the true immortals and high immortals. Why would he care about the Nailan family and the Aizenjoro family? They were just ants. At this time, Zhu Xiaoqin, Li Guangkol, and Ying Su were the most upset. They couldn't accept it at all. Before this, as the leaders of the younger generation of the reclusive royalty, they were the ones who were the most arrogant. They repeatedly spoke arrogantly and refused to accept Jiang Tian. They thought that with the stellar sky domain as their backing, they could compete with Jiang Tian. However, they didn't expect that Jiang Tian had long been the ruler of the stellar sky domain. Jiang Tian only needed to say one word to decide their future and fate. Ascending to the dimensional world? Now it was all over. At this time, Wu Qingtian, who was covered in blood, stepped forward and sneered. Everyone, weren't you going to fight with my master just now? Why are you kneeling now? Are you happy kneeling? Do you think that with the immortals of the stellar sky domain as your backing, you dare to bare your teeth at my master? In fact, the immortals and immortals in your eyes are just Master Kang's dogs. Hua Qingtian's face was full of anger as he roared. Forget it, old Hua. Don't be angry with them. They are just a bunch of ants. Shin Mange persuaded. Given my master's magnanimity, he might not take these personal grudges to heart. Hua Qingtian's tiger-like eyes were filled with tears as he roared. But, when the Tianqing school and the Long formation were commanding you, you said that we were not worthy. You acted on your own and ruined our plans time and time again. How many heroes of Wuxia have died because of you? More than 20 grandmasters of Wuxia's martial alliance died. The Long formation's Green Dragon and White Tiger of the 4 spiritual generals died in battle. 3 of the 8 legions died as well. Many of your royal family members died as well. However, these sacrifices were completely unnecessary. How can you face their souls in heaven? As soon as he said this, everyone's faces were filled with shame. They wished they could slap themselves a few times in regret. Now it seemed that Jiang Tian had the ability to crush the Holy See and the Brahmin. He was really just practicing. However, this group of troublemakers messed up the battle plan. In the end, they harmed others and themselves. The more Hua Qingtian spoke, the angrier he became. He roared, Jin Sohyun and Nalan Li, you are even more shameless. We were killing the enemy in front, and you were chasing after my master and threatening our dojo. Hearing this, Jiang Tian's handsome face darkened. He revealed a hint of anger and snorted. You deserve to die. Jiang Tian's faint snort was like a clap of thunder to Jin Wanxiong's ears. His entire body suddenly trembled as his heart trembled, and he was horrified to the extreme. Suddenly, his expression became ruthless as he exploded out like a ferocious tiger leaving the mountains, and he grabbed Jin Zixuan's throat. Father, what are you doing? Jin Sohyun screamed in horror. He was scared out of his wits. Patriarch Jin, what are you? The others were also shocked and wanted to stop him. Don't come over. Jin Wanxiong shouted. Then there was a crisp crack. He exerted force in his hand and unceremoniously broke Jin Sohyun's neck. Jin Sohyun's head drooped weakly. His eyes were bulging, and there was still a hint of shock and fear. He seemed to be unable to believe that he had died in the hands of his own father. Jin Wanxiong's eyes were filled with tears. He slowly let go of Jin Sohyun and let the body fall to the ground. He said in a trembling voice, Master Kong, this evil creature has offended you. I wonder if you are satisfied with this punishment? Jiang Tian sneered and said nothing, as if he had not seen anything. My son has offended Master Kong, so I broke his legs as punishment. I hope Master Kong can forgive me. Zhu Guanlan also got up and walked to Zhu Shaoqin in large strides. With 2 papa sounds she broke his legs. It hurts. Zhu Shaoqin fell to the ground and screamed. She was in so much pain that her eyes were about to crack. Then Li Guangyu followed suit and broke Li Guangko's limbs as an apology to Jiang Tian. You don't know the immensity of heaven and earth and angered Master Kong. Master Kong is already very kind to not kill you. Ingsu was also slapped repeatedly by Yingying Laozu. Half of his face was smashed and his canine teeth flew everywhere. Logically speaking, the matter should have come to an end at this point. Even Jiang Tian nodded, seemingly very satisfied. Suddenly, Jin Wanxiong's eyes were dull. He swung his long saber and cut off the heads of Nalan Li and his 2 brothers. Blood gushed out. The 3 headless bodies fell to the ground, and their heads rolled far away like blood gourds. In the face of this great change, everyone was stunned. Everyone looked at Jin Wanxiong in disbelief. Chapter 1009. Uncle Jin, don't kill me. Naran Qinghe was so scared that her face turned pale. Tears flowed down her cheeks, and she also pissed her pants. She ran away and wanted to beg for mercy. Jin Wanxiong took a step in the air and caught up. Once again he stabbed out with his saber, and with a pft his heart was pierced. Fresh blood spurted out as it pierced through his chest. Naran Qinghe was also dead. Uncle Jin, Spare my life. Nailin Jun was so scared that he fell to the ground. He screamed miserably like a wild dog that had been hit by a stick. He rolled and crawled on the ground, shitting and urinating. Bang! Jin Wanxiong pushed his palm forward, and Nailin Jun's body exploded. His flesh and blood splattered everywhere. Then he was like a mad tiger. In the blink of an eye, he killed several members of the Nailin family. Jin Wanxiong, what are you doing? Even a vicious tiger will not eat its cubs. Moreover, did I ask you to kill them? Jiang Tian seemed to have just come to his senses and shouted angrily. I killed them? Jin Wanxiong came to his senses. His face was full of astonishment. He looked at his blood-stained hands in a daze. He was in a daze and couldn't believe it. How could he dare to kill members of the Nailin family? The Nailin family was nothing to worry about. After all, they were Jiang Tian's wife, Zhao Xueqing's maiden family. Whether or not to kill, he had to listen to Jiang Tian's orders. However, he just couldn't control himself. It was as if his hands and feet didn't belong to him. Why is this happening? Jin Wanxiong, we are no longer part of the dragon protection lineage. We are not your slaves. Nailin Bo beat his chest and stamped his feet as he wailed. His heart was trembling. Originally, Jiang Tian was like a giant dragon flying in the sky. With this grandson-in-law, they should be glorious and prosperous for thousands of years. However, his 3 sons and a group of juniors were blind. They repeatedly confronted Jiang Tian, and in the end, they almost destroyed the whole family. Master Kong. At this moment, Jin Wanxiong's eyes suddenly widened in shock as he came to a realization. His consciousness was being controlled by Jiang Tian. It was Jiang Tian who wanted to kill the Nailin family. Because with Jiang Tian's cultivation, it would be a piece of cake for him to stop or even kill him. Right, it must be because of Zhao Xueqing's bizarre background. The reason why he didn't kill the Nailin family was probably because he was waiting for this opportunity to appear. Because it was reasonable for him to kill people. Since he had killed a member of the Nailin family, he would also make a move against him. Moreover, he wouldn't be able to leave anything behind. This kid is so vicious. In order to help his wife keep an insignificant secret, he actually slaughtered 2 families in a row. How vicious. This was the true attitude of an emperor. The common people were like ants, and human lives were like grass. What dragon protection clan? What reclusive royalty? As long as it could hurt him, no. Even if it could only hurt his family members, even if it only affected his mood, he would still face a disaster. His mind turned at lightning speed, and he instantly understood. At this moment, he hated Jiang Tian to the core. However, his desire to survive was greater than anything else. In other words, the mentality of preserving his descendants was greater than anything else. He instantly decided to admit defeat. He knelt on the ground and said in a trembling voice, Master Kong, I was too emotional. I know I was wrong, but a big mistake has been made. This old man is willing to apologize with his life. I only beg Master Kong to let my family go. Of course you were wrong. Of course I will kill you, Jiang Tian said coldly. However, it's impossible to let your family go. Although you are ants, ants will still sting people. Although it's not fatal, it's very annoying. So you want to destroy my family? Jin Wanxiong was trembling all over. His face was filled with despair and grief. He was also filled with regret. It was his idea to seize Sidoni's dojo. Now he had gone for wool and come home shorn. He was facing the disaster of destroying his family. Do you have any children under the age of 3 in your family? Jiang Tian suddenly asked. Yes, there are a few. Jin Wanxiong was ecstatic, and his face was filled with gratitude. Good. I will pick a few with good aptitude and accept them as disciples. I will personally guide them, and even bring them to the dimensional world, Jiang Tian said indifferently. As for you and the rest of your Jin family, go to hell. I have to give the Nailin family an explanation. Thank you, Master Kong, for your righteousness. Jin Wanxiong flipped his wrist and waved his saber. Kacha kacha. The dozen or so Jin family members were all killed. Not a single one was left alive. In an instant, corpses were everywhere. The thick smell of blood filled the air. Nailin Bo, I'm sorry, Don't hate me. Jin Luanxiong looked at Nalan Bo one last time. Then he slashed his saber across his neck. Blood stained the sky. Jin Luanxiong's tall body fell to the ground on his back. Yingying Laozu, everyone, if you have time, do me a favor and kill the Jin family. Leave no one alive. Jiang Tian said indifferently. A 3-year-old child? Yingying Laozu asked, but immediately felt that it was unnecessary. The whole place trembled. Everyone kept quiet out of fear. Their legs trembled and their hair stood on end. Especially Ying Su, Zhu Xiaochen and the rest. They were so scared that they almost peed on the spot. Before this, Jiang Tian had repeatedly ordered them not to participate in the operation. However, they continued to fight for credit and profit. Jiang Tian did not seem to do anything substantial, but now they knew how cruel and heartless Jiang Tian was. He was cold to the extreme. He was inhumane. After today, there would be no more Aizenjoro royal family in this world. Jiang Tian sighed softly. Then he looked at Nalan Bo sadly and said, "Grandfather, my condolences. I will announce to the world that Nalan Li and the rest were sacrificed in the battle with the Holy Sea Brahmin. Also, there are a few good descendants in the Nalan family. Especially Nalan Chu. I will personally take care of her." Jiang Tian, thank you. Nalan Bo's face was full of tears. He looked down weakly to hide the doubt in his eyes. Also, grandfather, there are some things that you should forget if you can. It is a blessing to be able to forget. Jiang Tian smiled faintly. Jiang Tianyu. Nalan Bo suddenly raised his head and looked at Jiang Tian in horror. In the depths of his eyes, there was a trace of pleading. Jiang Tian was still smiling. Suddenly his eyes turned cold. The soul devourer erupted and directly deleted all memories of Qing and Nalan ran in his mind. At the same time, the soul devourer that Jiang Tian left in the Nalan family, which had been in a lurking state, also pounced into the old lady's mind. Nalan Bo's last look should be that he understood that Jiang Tian might have controlled Jin Luanxiong. Although Nalan Bo was a sentimental person, although he was very righteous, although Jiang Tian killing Nalan Li and the rest was entirely their own fault. But the hatred of killing one's son, and almost exterminating one's family was not so easy to let go. The human heart was unpredictable. Of course this time Jiang Tian was very careful. He would not damage the brains of Nalan Bo and his wife. They would not know Qing'er anymore, but at least they could live happily for another 10 years. From now on, no one in this world would know the secret of Qing'er's life. After doing all this, Jiang Tian looked at Huang Linger. In the depths of his eyes, there was a trace of pity. He smiled and said, "Linger, you have made good progress in your seclusion this time. You have succeeded in building your foundation. How rare. Finally, I can no longer drag you down." Huang Linger seemed to have received a great reward. Her heart was sweet. She smiled shyly, but her beautiful eyes were filled with tears. This little hussy always likes to pretend to be weak and pitiful. Next to her, Tang Linglong was very jealous. She snorted lightly, but in her heart, she was secretly ruthless. She must work hard to cultivate and build her foundation as soon as possible. She could not be defeated by Huang Linger, and she could not be looked down upon by Jiang Tian. Jiang Tian withdrew his gaze and looked to the west. He smiled, as if the killing just now had nothing to do with him. He said lightly, "Everyone goodbye. However, you need to remember that no matter if you are a member of the royal family or an ordinary person, I hope you remember that you will always be Wuxia people. It is everyone's responsibility to guard their homeland. Yes. We'll definitely remember Grandmaster Zhang's lesson in our hearts. Yes, Master Kong. From now on, I will take the reclusive royalty as my responsibility to guard Wuxia. I will follow Master Kong and everyone in Tianqing School. I will not hesitate to go through water and tread on fire." Everyone stood respectfully. They bowed deeply, cupped their fists, and said yes in unison. Yingying Laozu cupped his fists respectfully and asked, "Master Kong, where are you going?" "I'm going to the Vatican to destroy the Holy See. I don't have the patience to let the Tianqing School and the Long Formation train. Let's just kill them." Jiang Tian shook his head casually. Originally, he had the intention of slaughtering the Holy See and the Brahmin. This time, the battle line was stretched out, and the battle was in a stalemate. It was just to train the Tianqing school and the long formation. Now they had gone through a certain amount of training and had achieved their goal. Jiang Tian wanted to quickly destroy the Holy See and the Brahmin, kill their way into the two-dimensional worlds, and snatch the spirit energy recovery seed. The Ying family is willing to follow Master Kong into the battlefield and help him. Ying Laozu's blood was boiling as he hurriedly said earnestly, "Yes, it's our honor to be able to follow Master Kong. It's the blessing of 100 years. This group of little brats are stupid beyond compare. They're only helping us and nearly spoiling Grandmaster Zhang's great plan of 1,000 years. We must bravely kill the enemy and make up for our mistakes." The other leaders of the royal family also hurriedly expressed their loyalty and fought to be left behind. Now Jiang Tian was already the ruler of Jiang Tian and had the emperor's token. The fate of the reclusive royalty was in the hands of Jiang Tian. Ascending to heaven to cultivate was also something that could be done with a word from Jiang Tian. Moreover, Jiang Tian's strength was unparalleled. How could they not curry favor with him? No need. I alone am enough. Jiang Tian smiled faintly. Suddenly, his true ether burst out and turned into a bright golden light. It instantly broke through the sound barrier and flew toward the west like a golden rainbow. In the blink of an eye, it disappeared from everyone's sight. That was where the world's #1 great sage orthodoxy, the Holy City, the Vatican, was located. Chapter 10:10. A long time after Jiang Tian disappeared, the green pine peak was still dead silent. Everyone stood there in a daze, as if they were dreaming. Master Kong is going to fight the Holy See and the Brahmin by himself. This is too shocking. No, the Holy See is full of powerhouses and cunning. We still have to follow. We can't let Master Kong take the risk alone. Everyone looked at each other and turned into streaks of light one after another, scrambling to follow after him. Basically, except for those who were seriously injured and couldn't move, the Tianqing school, the Wuxia formation, and the reclusive royalty all went. They walked for a while. Pick up the corpses. Pick up the corpses and eat. The old dragon in the form of a big black dog ran down from the deer peak and rushed into the gourd cave. This guy was wretched to the extreme. Although his cultivation was strong, he was timid and didn't dare to fight the powerhouses of the Holy See head-on. He had been hiding in the command center. Now that the battle was over, he came out to clean up the battlefield and pick up the corpses to eat. However, when he arrived at the gourd cave, there wasn't even a drop of residue left. The Kualian is so deceitful. Not even a speck of dust is left. I'm so hungry. The big black dog howled to the sky, then stepped into the air and flew toward the west. This time, I have to follow Master's footsteps. Otherwise, I won't even be able to pick up a warm corpse. When Jiang Tian set out for the Vatican, Wuxia has been bewitched. Boom. In the Holy See of the Vatican, in the holy tomb overflowing with spiritual qi, holy light suddenly gushed out and formed a set of golden words. The words were sonorous and heavy, with a metallic texture and weight of more than 10,000 kilograms. They illuminated the entire Vatican City and shocked the whole world like thunder. This was an oracle. How could this be? Go and investigate what happened to the 6 great monasteries and the crusade. Pope and St. Louis, who were originally confident of victory, suddenly looked as if they were facing a great enemy. They were shocked and panicked. This was an oracle, the consciousness of a true God's heroic spirit. The army of the East expedition, the 6 great monasteries and the crusade, were all elites of the Holy See. There were several saints in a monastery, which was comparable to a large sect in Wuxia. The crusade was even more glorious. It had once swept across the entire European continent. Even many orthodoxies in Central Asia had been cruelly wiped out and suppressed by it. With these two forces invading Wuxia, it could be said that victory was assured. Even before this, a true God's avatar was summoned by Saint Laurent and walked out of the saint tomb to participate in the war in the East. The heroic spirit of a true God. He could even kill an earth-level deity with a wave of his hand. Not even nuclear weapons could hurt him. Pope, St. Louis, and all the higher-ups of the Holy See had full confidence in this battle. In their opinion, Kang Techu and the Tianqing school were too young and too weak. They had been completely isolated. How could they be a match for the crusade? But they didn't expect this to happen. Then a piece of shocking news broke out. Everyone was scared out of their wits. They felt cold and sweaty, as if they had fallen into a nightmare. The crusade has been annihilated. The 6 great monasteries have been annihilated. The Brahmin army has been annihilated. Like a nuclear weapon, it shook the entire Vatican and shook the mountains. It swept across the 9 heavens and 10 lands, and the entire earth trembled. The 3 words annihilated were like heavy hammers. It fiercely smashed into their hearts, causing their hearts to almost explode. Their heads buzzed, and they felt dizzy. This is impossible. A bishop in council said with a pale face and trembling voice. This is the age of Dharma ending. How can there be such a demon? Kang Techu belongs to the Taoist sect after all. He doesn't believe in God, doesn't know how to accept faith, and doesn't know sacred arts. How can he be so powerful? It must be a conspiracy. Kang Techu can't have reached the level of fighting against the heroic spirits of a true God. Another bishop in a red robe said in disbelief. Maybe the Kunlun sect and the Hongming sect have done something. Especially the Kunlun sect and the ancestral court of the Taoist sect in Wuxia. They might have left some ancient arrays and used them to annihilate the crusade and the 6 great monasteries. An old 200-year-old cultivator in an old cultivator robe speculated. He was very knowledgeable and his eyes were like torches. Hongming was very mysterious. It was said that it was formed by the sky immortals of the Wuxia sect who were killed and punished by the immortal trap array. It was the most mysterious trump card in the cultivation world of the Wuxia sect. The magnificent Kunlun sect was born in the Preqin dynasty and was known as the ancestral court of the Taoist sect. It was the first divine mountain, the mountain of ancestors, the home of all gods. Its Taoist teachings had a long history, and it was extremely powerful. It suppressed many sects and was even more mysterious. However, Kunlun and Hongming had been in hiding for hundreds of years. That was why the Holy See dared to be so presumptuous. Could it be that they had come out now? Not so. The situation is worse than we expected. However, the leader of the crusade, who was in the Holy See and hadn't gone to battle, immediately provided the battlefield information system with the images captured. Nowadays, the crusade was also a combination of sacred arts and modern technology. It was equipped with a battlefield command system, information system, and satellite connection. Therefore, the people behind the Holy See were still able to grasp the actual situation of the battlefield. The images were very clear. In the beginning, the 2 sides were fighting fiercely. Gradually, the crusade, the 6 great monasteries, and the Brahmin army gained the upper hand and were in a crushing situation. They chased the Tianqing school and the Huaxialong formation until they fled in panic like stray dogs. They even chased them into a gourd-shaped valley. It was like catching a turtle in a jar. Victory was in their grasp. However, at the last moment, the Coelian exploded. The sky splitter heavy cannon fired. Lightning flashed, and a dazzling white light appeared. Then the image disappeared and it was dark. Fuck your mother. A bishop in council was so angry that his whole body trembled, and he almost vomited blood. He cursed without caring about his image. Kang Techu is too cunning. He actually used firearms. Despicable and shameless. Shameless. Too shameless. Too vicious. How dare you use a scheme? Many people were cursing loudly. This is not a firearm. This is a Dharma artifact. The leader of the Red Cross said with a trembling voice, "It looks like a miniature version of the Coelian." Coelian. A miniature version. When everyone heard this, their vision went dark, and they almost fainted. They've developed a miniature version of the sunflower lotus. This thing was said to be superior to nuclear weapons. It could kill gods and Buddhas and exterminate all living things. It had once scared the leaders of major countries. The Pentagon and the Kremlin fought to buy it, and started a Coelian competition. They obediently gave money to Sidoni. The Holy See and the Brahmin seemed to be flaunting their power and determined to win, but in fact, they were strong in appearance but weak in reality. Because Sidoni had the Coelian. They did not dare to get close to Sidonia at all, for fear that they would be wiped out in one shot. The reason why the Holy See and the Brahmins started the battle in Wuxia instead of Sidonia was because they were afraid of the Coalian. They wanted to use Jiang Tian's hometown plot and patriotism to attract Wuxia, and then be wiped out. After all, the Coalian in Wuxia had just been tested. Moreover, the Lansong River was not a no-man's land. It was not easy to release it. But now, you have developed a miniature Coalian that can be pulled around by a truck. You can even install it on a helicopter. How are you going to let us live? How's the crusade now? How's the 6 great monasteries? Pope and St. Louis had a bad feeling. They were trembling and their voices were trembling. No one survived. Completely wiped out. We went to the battlefield to investigate. The leader of the crusade, with a trembling voice, showed the photos and videos taken from the battlefield. The battlefield was a mess. It was like the scene after a volcano erupted. The gourd cave was melted. Even the armor, helmets, and shields made of refined steel were all melted. Only some half-melted fragments could still be seen. It was obvious that this was a battlefield. All the experts of the Brahmins of the Holy See had disappeared from this world without leaving behind any corpses. The crusade, the 6 great monasteries, thousands of powerhouses. Those bishops and council and cardinals who once wanted to kill Jiang Tian felt extremely distressed when they saw this. Tears flowed down their faces. Wah 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 wah. I can't take it. The losses are too heavy. How can this be? God. What a god. Kong Te-Chu is too despicable. How can he use such a powerful artifact? Some people even vomited blood. No one knew whether it was because they were distressed or because they were angry. The 6 great monasteries were the Holy See's reliance. They were like the long formation to Wuxia. For example, if the Holy See were a country, then the crusade would be their army. They were the claws and teeth of tigers and wolves. They fought everywhere and plundered the world. They were the source of financial income. They were 10 times, 100 times more important than the Judgment Institute, which only targeted and suppressed the heretics. Now Jiang Tian's few shots were equivalent to breaking the teeth and breaking the claws of the tigers. Many bishops even regretted it. If they had known, they would have peacefully dominated the West. Why did they have to go to the Central Land to kill demons? They had lost soldiers and generals. They were in a sorry state. We have to conquer the East. Continue conquering the East. Pope and St. Louis were also shocked and astonished. But after a moment, they regained their composure and issued an order. This is an unbearable loss for the Holy See. We must take revenge. Tear Kong Te-Chu into pieces. This time, not only do we have to unite the Brahmin, but we also have to make use of the power of the reclusive royalty in Europe. Reclusive royalty? Are we going to encourage them too? Beside them, many cardinals, paladins, and monks were stunned. They could not believe it. They claimed that Kong Te-Chu's actions would only lead to an even crueler counterattack. Originally, Sao Paulo and Kasayapa Guru were only there as a form of deterrence and did not have to make a move. However, Jiang Tian had so many people, and the conflict was irreconcilable. These 2 living fossils would definitely take action personally. Kong Te-Chu's strength was still incomparable to the Holy See and the Brahmin. Moreover, Sao Paulo and Kasayapa Guru's glorious achievements were listed. However, the development of the situation was more intense than everyone expected. One after another, earth-shattering news came one after another. Boom. In France, beside the Seine River, in a majestic palace filled with the aura of time, an old man wearing a bright crown and a brocade robe stood up. He looked like a lion overlooking the world and said coldly, "Bourbon royalty, for the safety of mankind, from this moment on, I declare war on Tianqing School." The Bourbon dynasty had ruled France since 1589 AD, and lasted for 300 years. They had experienced many twists and turns. During the French Revolution, they were overthrown. After the Battle of Waterloo, they were restored for a period of time. However, they were overthrown again during the July Revolution. This royal family was powerful, had a deep foundation, and had far-reaching influence. Even the Spanish royal family, the Grand Duke of Luxembourg, was a branch and descendant of the Bourbon dynasty. Many people thought that the Bourbon dynasty had been destroyed long ago. However, that was not the case. They had only hibernated. The ruler of the Bourbon dynasty, Henry VIII, was actually a holy king with a lifespan of 300 years. In the past, he was able to wrestle with the Holy See and set off a struggle between the royal and religious power. Kong Techu has repeatedly harmed the secular world in Europe and set off bloody storms. Now that the capitalist kingdoms are incompetent, we, the descendants of the royal family, naturally have to eliminate him and protect Europe. Later in Portugal, the royal family, Castillo III, also declared war on Tianqing school with murderous intent. The leader of the royal family was also a holy king, whose strength was equivalent to the earth god of the east. The empire on which the sun never sets has become so decadent and weak now. They were bullied by a Wuxia and a group of African Negroes. In the past, they could only be our Negroes. Meanwhile, in an ancient manor in England, tens of thousands of rays of golden light suddenly shone, and majestic music was played. An old man wearing a golden crown and holding a scepter walked out slowly, looking at the people who were kowtowing to him. The Hanover family can't even protect Buckingham Palace. It's time for us, the Tudor royal family, to step in and show the world the true strength of the British Empire. He was already very old, with a head full of white hair. His back was hunched, and he was trembling slightly. However, his blood chi was surging and his aura was soaring. His pair of deep blue eyes shot out a mysterious light. Edward VI, the last surviving emperor of the Tudor dynasty, had once ruled England for 100 years. He was actually a half-step holy venerable, and was already 600 years old. Back then, he was the Lord of the Sea and had once led strong ships and sharp cannons to conquer Europe. He had even carried out religious reforms, and expelled the Holy See from the Vatican. He was someone who could talk to St. Paul. One after another, members of the hidden royal family appeared out of thin air. A total of 10 Saint Kings appeared in groups, stunning everyone. Many people didn't expect that in this age of chaos, especially after Jiang Tian wiped out the Covenant of Darkness. There were actually so many hidden royals in Europe. There were actually so many holy kings. However, when they thought about it carefully, they felt that it was not strange. In the long Middle Ages, the royal family, which represented the imperial power, the Holy See, which controlled the religious power, and the Covenant of Darkness, which represented the illegal power of the people, had been competing with each other, cooperating with each other, or killing each other, creating the magnificent and fluctuating European history. It wasn't until the rise of modern technology and capitalism that the three retreated from the stage of history and disappeared from everyone's sight. However, even the descendants of the weakest Covenant of Darkness could remain dormant until modern society, let alone the stronger Holy See and reclusive royalty. When it came to this dispute, although many of the major countries in the world were paying close attention, their attitudes were very ambiguous, and they rarely spoke publicly. The European countries already knew how terrifying the Coalition was, so they didn't dare to send troops to support the Holy See and reclusive royalty. Otherwise, they would destroy their own countries before Tianqing school was eliminated. The United States was basically uninvolved in this dispute. Now that the Blue Storm Bottle, Universe Shield, and even the Superbrain clan had been wiped out, they were not qualified to participate at all. President of the European Union, Jung, expressed in a private setting. He hoped that many powerhouses and forces would maintain their rationality and restraint. Even if they had to go to war, they must not invade the secular order. This was tantamount to appeasement and nurturing evil. He was happy to see it happen. In fact, many of the major countries in the world had very complicated emotions. Many politicians also had different standpoints, and they quarreled fiercely in the meeting. Some heads of state and politicians hoped that both sides would go to war, fight to the death, and suffer losses. Because whether it was the Tianqing school, the Holy See, or the Brahmin, they were all existences that surpassed the secular regime. If they were allowed to develop, it would lead to the subversion of the existing social order. Some people thought that the Tianqing school, the Holy See, and the Brahmin were the strongest of mankind. It was lamentable that they would kill each other. Especially in the case of the possible invasion of the worldlet, they needed to preserve their strength. In the end, the last holy sage of the Holy See, St. Paul, walked out of the Holy Tomb and issued an ultimatum in the Vatican. From today onwards, the Holy See and the European reclusive royalty would hunt down Kong Techu and the henchmen of the Tianqing school all over the world. At the same time, the Brahmin Kasyapa guru also walked out of the ancient ashram and publicly announced that he would personally lead the Brahmin powerhouses to go to war against Jiang Tian and the Tianqing school to slay the evil. In this regard, the spokesperson of the Tianqing school immediately announced, "The Holy See and the Brahmin, as well as any other forces, please immediately stop harassing and invading Wuxia and the Tianqing school." Kong Techu had led the Tianqing school all the way to the west to discuss global peace with the Holy See. If the other party wanted to go to war, there would be no need for peace negotiations. They would directly trample the European reclusive royalty and the two major orthodoxies. When the news came out, the world was shocked. Kong Techu had already gone deep into the enemy's territory alone and took the initiative to attack the Holy See? This was too crazy. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.